Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow underway. The Friday edition is here. We are glad you are here with us across the OutKick network, which includes YouTube, X, Twitter, I still call it Twitter, Facebook, and live at OutKick.com, and on this great radio partner. Chad, a big Friday show. We've got Dan Dakich, host of Don't At Me here on OutKick, who will join us coming up in about 20 minutes. And later this hour, Jim Williams, who is a Forbes columnist and also with Zinger and a media rights expert when it comes to conference realignment, grant of rights, and media contracts with college conferences and with universities and programs. What's happening with the ACC, the very latest on Stanford, Cal, and SMU later this hour as well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hunt. Much to my surprise, I think that X is starting to take off. I think the people are starting to switch over and call it X and not just Twitter, which I'm surprised it's
I'm having a
this
difficult
quickly.
time with that.
I am too, but I'm also finding myself more and more saying X as well as Twitter. Whereas before I wouldn't have even thought about it.
But do you also say retweet?
I'm starting to get the post also. They posted on X. So, yes, I would still say retweet.
I reposted,
in fact,
not
when
retweeted.
I look for it, the repost is what it says. And it takes me a second to realize, oh, that's the old retweet is repost.
Let's get to 6 o'clock Eastern, shall we?
We will.
With the studio here at 6th and Peabody. Yeehaw Beer and
We'll
Old Smoky
do
Moonshine.
so in a speedy manner.
That's
also.
right. Get you there as well through your workday into the weekend. College football officially kicks off this weekend. A lot to discuss throughout today's show. And with the NFL, we start there with our top headlines, Scorched Earth today. And, Chad, it's the second time this week that we've opened the show discussing preseason football and performances on the field in a good manner. Not that we're bored and we can't wait for the regular season. That's fair. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, albeit Atlanta looked awful, the Pittsburgh Steelers, legit. Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, this offense, starting offense with Pickett on the field, 4 possessions, 4 touchdowns through the preseason. If he ends up going into the season playing as well as he has through the last month and a half, Pittsburgh, while they've never really left the top level of the NFL in terms of bottoming out, and we haven't heard from them in a while, never a losing season with Mike Tomlin. The starters are playing, and they're performing at a high level. They look like, with Matt Canada now calling the plays, he was the quarterback's coach a year ago with Pickett, things have picked up for their second-year QB. And if they get off to the hot start in what is going to be a very competitive AFC North, and with the fact that in that division, there are a ton of division matchups within the first month of the season, the Steelers are playing the best in terms of just looking locked in and knowing and feeling comfortable with the system that they're running, which is typical for the Steelers organization.
It's been a while since we slept on the Steelers. Of all franchises,
really
of all teams, well, we haven't thought about them because, Ben Roethlisberger was a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. And when he retires, we'll wait and see on this Kenny Pickett guy, who's a homegrown kid who played his college football in the same stadium. He's playing now with the Steelers. I love the pick when the Steelers made it, and he's starting to look like he is the next great Steelers possible Super Bowl winning quarterback. So I look at that entire division in the AFC North, and I see 2 real sleepers in that division with both Cleveland and Pittsburgh possibly breaking through this season. So Pickett's been great. I love Mike Tomlin. I love that it's really his personality. I mean, it goes further back than that. But Mike Tomlin is the perfect torchbearer for the Steelers way and what that franchise is about. A no-nonsense guy, an alpha in his approach.
Yes.
And he's an alpha when it comes to preseason also and getting reps and why it's meaningful to play your starters in preseason games.
Well, and George Pickens, again, these aren't 4-quarter stats, but you have Pickett who has a perfect passer rating through the preseason. Completed 13 of 15 of his pass attempts this preseason, 2 touchdown passes. You see the Steelers' offense has scored 5 touchdowns on his 5 drives. I mentioned 4. That's my fault there. But Pickens on the outside, the 50-50 balls are not 50-50 for him.
It's more like 70-30.
Yeah, it feels that way. And you got Lamar Jackson back, Watson, of course, in Cleveland. We'll discuss later in today's show how good are the Browns really, because they could be really good. They could just be average, and expectations for a franchise that has set the bar for pay. But meanwhile, the Steelers have been in a little bit of a bounce back, but they went 9-8 a year ago with Tomlin. And he was asked last night, hey, you've played your starters. Do you need to focus on the season opener, which, oh, by the way, is against San Francisco in week 1 and Brock Purdy. You have Purdy against Pickett. Here's what Tomlin had to say with his philosophy on preseason play.
I don't really need validation. I just think it's difficult to box without sparring. And so, preseason is an opportunity for us to spar and sharpen our sword for the battle.
I love that.
Simple, to the point.
It's very well said.
You can
now,
see they're playing a bit longer than the average starting offenses are playing. That's why he's answering it that way. But, I don't know what 6 snaps does for, Ryan Tannehill if he plays tonight. Reports are they're still waiting to decide if he's going to play at quarterback to get some reps in with the first-team offense for the Titans. I don't know what 6 snaps does in live action when you've had joint practices, but this is a bit different because they want to make sure they're hitting on all cylinders as best as possible with an off season where you generally take the biggest leap with second-year players, and they have a lot of them.
Yeah, and I think different coaches could debate what sparring means. In the preseason, right? Because he's saying sparring is playing a little bit in a preseason game, and you kind of referenced this, Hutton, but if you've got a joint practice or 2 of them with 2 different teams and you're doing live scrimmage action, is that sparring? Is what you're doing in your intra-squad part of camp, is that sparring also if you're going live? Not ever fully live.
Right,
most practices for the quarterback. But you get my drift. That I think every coach is going to have a different definition of what sparring is to box. But I like the way Mike Tomlin frames it. It does make a lot of sense. If you're going to go out there and box, which is play regular season NFL football, and you only get 17 opportunities to do so, you want to do a little sparring, and that's what preseason games look like. It's more than sparring for the back end of the roster when they get in the game that are trying to make a roster. They're playing all out. But for those starters that know that their position with the team is locked in, I think sparring is a good analogy for what's going on.
Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, a big talk there on who's receiving carries and who's not. They'll start by splitting reps in the backfield. That's really the biggest storyline right now with this team. They look really good. Meanwhile, the storyline in Indianapolis is with Jonathan Taylor, the running back who's on PUP and wants to be traded. He's requested to trade as late as the end of the month in July. Now he's been granted permission to go find a trade partner. And now we're starting to hear more teams named instead of just a group of teams and a number beside of it. 6 teams roughly. That was the number of teams that was reported to be really at least truly interested in trading for the Indy Star running back who is 24 years old and is a year removed from averaging 5.5 yards per carry and led the NFL in rushing. Chad, the Broncos, the Bears, and the Dolphins seem to be the 3 teams that, at least through the national reporters like Schefter and Rappaport, Darlington, and others, those are the teams that seem to be truly aggressive. Are they aggressive enough with what the Colts need? Don't know. But the card that the Colts can play is, hey, he's on the physically unable to perform list, which means he's failed their physical to show up and be 100% at camp. If he goes through next Tuesday without being traded and he's still on PUP, they can place him on that list for the first 4 weeks of the season, and he will not count against their roster of 53.
Let's speculate a bit here, Hutton. Of the 6 or so teams that have been mentioned as possibilities for Jonathan Taylor that have been discussing with his camp a possible trade with the Colts for him, which of those teams would Jonathan Taylor make the biggest impact on the league with? Not just the team, but the biggest possible impact on the league.
That would come with Miami. Impact on the league. Now, if you're combining both, I think the impact is in Chicago, where I think the division is more open than how it's perceived with the Vikings running away with it. Minnesota, too, could be in the mix. That's another intriguing team because they got rid of Dalvin Cook, but they get the younger version of a very talented and A-list running back who's, 5 years younger, I believe, they could upgrade at the position and pay him a base salary here or you restructure it and give him some money down the road, or you just tell him, hey, sign this. We're going to give you a bit of a bump, and we promise not to franchise tag you a year from now. That's the other thing that could come up with this. But again, you also have to trade for him, and I don't know if the Colts are going to budge. Well, you have to have some give and take, but it's not like they're trading away Isaiah Simmons to New York for a 7th-round pick here.
Yeah.
You can't make that deal.
The one that was mentioned yesterday, not as much now, that I think would have an enormous impact is Philly.
But see, Philly's already stacked. I'm looking at Miami like, where do you put Miami in the hierarchy of the AFC right now? When Tua was healthy and didn't have the first concussion. I
put them third in their own division.
Okay. And then with him.
Maybe second, but a playoff team. I think two teams in that division are going to, I'm guessing right now, we'll do our playoff picks next week.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing Bills, Jets.
Sure.
Could it then be Bills, Dolphins, or Jets, Dolphins? Absolutely. And it could be that way now, but I think that's certainly a possibility.
And then Taylor's a step above. I know Miami they've stockpiled running backs. Taylor's a step above those guys. And in any locker room, he's the number one. Denver's also intriguing. You put a run game behind Russell Wilson, and that's what they had success with in Seattle as well.
With the Jerry Jeudy news we'll talk about a little bit later, the need for a run game is even more right now for Denver, possibly.
A need for a interim head coach while Jim Harbaugh serves the 3-game suspension, Chad. The coaches have been named, and they've named multiple assistants to fill the role of the head figure, determining on the sideline what you do in a game day situation. Harbaugh announces his coaches for those first 3 games in what should be layups for the Michigan Wolverines. So we haven't heard from Jim Harbaugh. He's just announced his coaching carousel here while he's out of the suspension list.
It's by design.
But absolutely. And he's pissed off.
Extremely pissed off. I love that his dad, his 84-year-old dad, Jack Harbaugh, who's a longtime coached at Western Kentucky in college for a while, in fact, is going to be one of the assistant or associate head coaches in all of this. I see this and I think, how important is the head coach really if you're just going to swap it up every game? Wouldn't it serve you better?
Some of the guys are suspended for a game from the NCAA.
But wouldn't it serve you better to just pick one guy and then keep your responsibilities the same on game day? And the head coach is almost everything in college football. I'm not trying to diminish the importance of a head coach in college football. I just think in terms of game day responsibility and what you're doing, these guys can figure it out on a staff. They've been on staffs long enough to know what to do in shifting responsibility. And I think the guys that he picked are going to do just fine. I just fully expected it to be one person that would be coaching these 3 games, and then everyone would slot into different roles, and they would be in those roles for all 3 games that he's out. But apparently Jim Harbaugh had other ideas.
Well, and he's splitting up one of the games, first half, second half.
Yeah.
It's like a spring game. And that's
it's like
UNLV.
when they bring in the celebrity guest coach that gets to call the first play.
Didn't Clay do that one time?
He did. I think he did Alabama. In fact. The disrespect to these other programs also.
Well,
you know what? We're just going to try something different and have 2 head coaches over 2 halves in this game.
But isn't
that cute?
We're all disrespecting them, though, because it's like, look at these 4 games they were trying to negotiate. Look at these opponents.
If you're Barry Odom, who's in his first year, former Missouri head coach, first year at UNLV, and you see this, it's like, well, thanks a lot, Jim. I guess it really doesn't matter that much.
That was going to be Barry Odom and Bobby Petrino, was it not? Briefly? And then Petrino
Petrino took the job, and I think he almost went on the road recruiting for UNLV
2 weeks.
and then took off for A&M.
Yeah.
That's right.
Chad, the Spaniard kiss of death that we've we've all heard about with the Women's World Cup, the Spain Soccer Federation president who kissed the star player on the lips for Spain. So there was a report out that he was stepping down, that he was resigning his post. And another report from out of New York where he was, the team is not going to play reportedly until he's gone, the Royal Spanish Football Federation prez. Turns out Amber Harding has a story at OutKick that he's actually not resigning. And he is saying that the kiss was consensual. That's the quote from the prez on that. We had a discussion earlier the week about like what's customary, what's not, what's odd, what's wrong. And in this case, you look at it, and I raised an eyebrow. I'm like, what's going on here? But I also think, like, you know, you can't touch a royal. Tom Cruise can't hold the hand of, you know, Kate Middleton.
Of royalty?
Yeah.
So the quote from Rubiales, Luis Rubiales, who's the president of the Spanish Soccer Federation, is, "In the moment that Ginny arrived, she lifted me up off the ground. We almost fell over. We hugged. I said, 'Forget about the penalty. You've been fantastic.' And then I said, 'A kiss?' And she said, 'Yes.' And then they kissed." That's his recollection.
It was spontaneous, mutual, euphoric, and consensual. That's the other quote.
Social assassination is what he's claiming is taking place right now.
Also consensual. Dan Dakich. He joins us next, right here on Hot Mic.
He has no empathy, heavy dementia, doesn't even know where the hell he is, and thinks the whole world revolves around him. He's literally telling people who lost their loved ones, who lost their homes, who lost their property, who lost their businesses about a 20-minute kitchen fire. That's a kitchen fire. And this jackass goes on and on and on about a kitchen fire. It wasn't he almost lost his home. I mean, do a little research. A kitchen fire. That's all it is. And this guy has the audacity to go in front of people who lost their island, their city, their homes, their livelihoods, their relatives, and discuss himself. And I can't even, I'm speechless. Every time I see it, I get so pissed off, I can't even tell you. I mean, stupid and arrogant are the worst two things a people can have. If you're smart and you're arrogant, you at least know you're arrogant. If you're stupid, like the dude started out last in his class in everything he's ever been. Now let's get that. The dude cheated on his first wife. The dude is stupid. And stupid and arrogant is no way to go through life. It's the deadliest combination. Deadly. Couldn't be a worse combination. And this guy's got it. He's so arrogant and he's so stupid and he's so not out here, and we got to listen to it. We seriously have to listen to this. I thought there was nobody worse that I ever wanted to listen to than George W. Bush. And then Obama came along with his blah, 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 stupid ass stuff. I mean, his idiotic, trying to be on the wall, every wall, trying to be smarter than he is, blah, 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 blah. And now we got this. This is just embarrassing. This just make you mad. This make you mad, and you got to say to yourself, hold the phone, hang on here. This is horrible. This is a horrible human being speaking to people that have lost everything, and this guy is talking about himself, comparing himself. He was so stupid, he stepped off a curb. Now, we're not going to show you the video. He stepped off a curb in front of firefighters in Lahaina, after the biggest wildfire in American history, and jokingly said, "Oh, the ground's hot." Well, no kidding. They just had the biggest wildfire in American history, you idiot. And he thinks he's being clever, and people guffaw. It's like Peyton Manning. He said, He said, I can't believe that guy's so funny. It is amazing to me. It is astounding to me. It angers me to no end this jackass, this arrogant fool, gets up there and represents us, and he don't give a rat's double about you or me. Not even kinda. Not even sorta. He don't care about you, me. If he can't promote it, if he can't profit off it, he don't care. It's a career politician, hasn't done a damn thing in his life. I mean, you're sitting there and you've lost everything that you have, and this guy's telling you about, oh, I don't know, a little kitchen fire. Really?
Sixth and Peabody, our location with E-Hop Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. We're here live 3 to 6 p.m. each weekday afternoon. You can also catch Dan Dakich on the OutKick network, host of Don't At Me, mornings 9 to 11 Eastern. There he is, Dan the Man, Dakich. Dan, good to see you.
What's going on, fellers?
What's the feeling going into the weekend, man? You got a cold one yet or no?
No, I've been working. I worked out. I was doing some stuff. I was mowing grass. I got to get some stuff done, man. I got a big weekend. I got the Senior Club Championship over here. I got to go see a Queen cover band. I just got done at the Sox game. Hey, no grass doesn't grow under my feet, pal. We got to keep it moving.
You got to keep rolling at all times, Dan. And that's the way the Colts, I guess, feel right now. You got to keep it moving. Even when your star running back wants out, that star running back can go find their own trade, and then we'll talk about it. What is the vibe there in Indy around Jonathan Taylor getting traded?
It's not pro Jonathan Taylor, I'll tell you that much, and particularly I don't know if you remember, but it was 4 years ago yesterday, Andrew Luck quit on the Colts, and that kind of stirred up, like, what's Jonathan Taylor doing? He's paid a contract that he signed, and he's not playing, but he's there. People at camp haven't been nasty, but he has kind of stayed in the middle of the field away from fans to interact, which is unlike him. He's always been a very cordial guy towards everybody, really. So this is kind of sad to see. It really is. I mean, a guy that has a reputation, a stellar reputation, smart, hardworking, all that kind of stuff, and now he's kind of reduced to hiding from his own fans. I don't like it. I'm sure he doesn't like it. Hey, it could come up tomorrow, today, any moment that the Colts have traded him. But I swear to you, the people that I talked to said it's going to take a pretty good deal to trade him. I mean, they have all the leverage. You know, some people are talking about a second and a fourth, maybe, a second and a third. I don't know. I mean, my people tell me the Colts want a first unless this thing gets to some type of different deal where they give in. But I don't know, man. As of right now, Colts got their heels dug in pretty good, saying, look, you going to play or not?
Dan Dakich with us. Dan, there's so many follow-ups here, but first, is he healthy?
It's a great question. It's a great question.
I'm not giving up a second or a third-round pick for a guy who's not going to play till October.
That's part of the leverage I'm talking about. In fact, on a little local show I did today, we were talking about, like, playing role play. Like, if I'm a general manager and I want to trade for Jonathan Taylor, I'm asking those questions. Okay, is it his ankle that he had surgery on? Now, there were reports that it's his back. Jonathan Taylor said it wasn't his back, but pretty reliable people are saying it's his back. This is why it's just another example of why when I've come on your show, going back, I think even before I had a show, I would talk about the Colts as liars, Ballard as a fraud, the Indy media as complicit. We went through this with Peyton Manning. The media covered, well, they didn't know they were inept, and one of the guys who worked at our radio station got the neck thing. We went through this with Andrew Luck. Was it his ankle? Was it his knee? Was it a soft tissue? Hell, Peyton Manning got pissed at the organization because they dragged him out there, and he did old Peyton, said, yeah, he gonna play, that happy horse bleep that Peyton spews, and next day he's quitting. This is what we do in Indy, and this is why I'm so critical of this organization, this general manager, because this is what we do. Nobody knows what the injury is. I had a guy who is in the front office of another team say Ballard is so arrogant that he literally thinks he could slip all this by us. It'll be interesting to see, but those questions, it's exactly the right questions. Yeah. Is he healthy? Who the hell knows?
Yeah, and one more from me on this. Irsay really stirred this up, not Ballard. But going back to your point of the last year, Irsay...
Whoa. How did Irsay screw it up?
Oh, because they did the bus thing, and then he came out publicly and said, yeah, the running backs that are on that Zoom call were full of crap, and they need to be more professional with what they're talking about. Meanwhile, the reports were from other players that Jonathan Taylor on the Zoom call was the most pissed off and disgruntled about the whole situation. So, I mean, he would absolutely take it from his owner like he's talking about his own player, who he's been asking about, hey, can we negotiate, can we not? And the first thing Irsay says publicly is regarding to the Zoom call.
Well, I'll answer that, but the bigger issue here is that Taylor went into this pissed off. And again, I'm the only one that you're going to hear this from, and I know this to be true. Players don't want to play there. And it's not because of Jimmy Irsay. Players don't want to play there because they know it is a soft, unprofessional organization. Now, you heard Matt Ryan call it a blank show. We've seen Phillip Rivers say, hey, look, I'm not coming back for $25 million. Andrew Luck quit. Jack Doyle quit in his prime. Kahari Willis quit in his prime. Stephon Gilmore said, I'm getting out of here. And now Jonathan Taylor. This is about Ballard. Yeah, Irsay defended the whole thing, and Irsay got out in front. And to your point, I'm supposing you're right. But this ain't about that. This is about that players, a number of them, including Matt Ryan when he left last year, said, look, this is a blank show. There's nobody in there that you can trust. The feeling is that everybody runs to Ballard, and that's why Ballard has been a little bit eviscerated from the organization. He's been kept for whatever the reason, but this is his daughters are involved. His daughters are in the meetings. Players don't like that. Real players don't. Now, look, the 35th player to the 53rd player, he don't care about any of that. He's just happy to be on a team.
That's right.
But good players that understand they're in it's all on Ballard. Yeah, Irsay did his thing, and that's kind of the public perception. But I deal in real, and the real is this organization has been this way for a long time, and this is squarely on what Ballard has done. He has PowerPoints in front of this is about relationships, blah, blah, blah. And players don't want to hear that crap. Players got 3 to 5 years, man. I don't want to hear this crap I know it's not about relationships because I know you'll cut my ass. This is all about Ballard and all about the organization. And Jimmy Irsay just did everybody. Jimmy Irsay just did what Jimmy Irsay does.
Oh, yeah. Irsay, you never know what he's going to say or sing with his guitar on his plane. The other thing that Irsay said was he wasn't trading Jonathan Taylor, and they've granted permission to seek a trade. And I'm just reading between the lines here, Dan. Irsay on Jonathan Taylor 5 days ago. Chris Ballard's going to work hard and try to get the waters calm. The owner is hoping the GM can smooth things over with Taylor going forward. So Ballard's going to take this, and all of the talks prior to this have been between Irsay and Taylor.
Yeah, but
he didn't meet with Ballard. He met with Irsay on the bus.
Right. What I'm telling you, Jimmy Irsay just told you what I'm telling you to be true because Irsay knows, look, I'm just talking here. Ballard's the guy that screwed. Here's the deal. Here's the deal with Jimmy Irsay. Jimmy Irsay loves players. Jimmy Irsay used to have but Jimmy Irsay changed. Jimmy Irsay became the social justice guy. And he bought into Ballard and Reich's stuff. We've had Ballard go on TV crying about social justice. We've had him crying about guns. We had Frank Reich kneeling when the players were standing. And here's the most telling part. Jimmy Irsay always had this sign. Never let anything interfere with winning. It was mandatory that Polian put it up. It was mandatory Grigson put it up, all their assistants. That thing got taken down off of all of the walls. That thing got taken down because Ballard sold this bill of goods that we can win, but we can be a model. We can be a different way to go about it. Relationships, loving each other. We'll be involved social media crap. We'll be involved social justice stuff. All right, great. We want you to be. But the truth of the matter is, and you guys know this as well as anybody, The NFL is 17 freaking games. You win or you lose. That's it. It ain't building a team. It's you win, you lose. You win, you have extended waiting lists for season tickets. You lose, Colts right now are begging people to come on and buy tickets. Simple as that.
Dan, as a former head coach yourself, not in football but in basketball, what do you think about Jim Harbaugh deciding to go with a revolving door of guest head coaches from his staff for those 3 games he's going to serve his suspension?
I think it's kind of brilliant, and I'll tell you why. Maybe 5 years ago, you didn't do that. Maybe 5 years ago you said, my trusted assistant's doing it. But now, let's be honest, you got to look at who that trusted assistant is. How old is he? What race is he? You just do, and you can say you don't, and you can say it's unfair, but you just do. And the modern guy, the modern coach, NFL or others, who did it? Peyton did it, in the preseason. I'm going to let so-and-so coach to show that, a diverse coach can do this. That's all it is. I get it. Good for him. I kind of like it. It also shows that he doesn't really have a lot of respect for the teams that he's playing, including my Bowling Green Falcons. But, hey, look, that's the world we live in. You got to appease. You don't want to put some old white guy out there the whole time. I get it. I understand it. It's meaningless because they're going to win these 3 games, 30-0. Guy, I don't even know. Here's the question that I have. Like, people say my record at Indiana in the 7 games I took over was 3-4. I disagree. Knight got thrown out in the first 5 minutes against Northwestern. I was the head coach. We won. Knight got thrown out in the first 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it was, against Western Michigan. I was the head coach. We won. Whose record are those wins going on? Like, Krzyzewski had the one bad year. He petitioned the NCAA, said, I was a head coach, but I didn't coach because of my back. Put him on Pete Gaudette. Whose records do those go on? That's the assistant coach in me thinking. I guarantee you if they win, they're on Harbaugh's. If they lose, I guarantee you they're not.
That's a good point. Yeah, win, it's definitely going to the coach. And I very much remember that Coach K year you're talking about with the back problems. I think the one time they didn't go to the NCAA tournament was that year where he backed out midseason because of his back. I've been watching Swamp Kings with your buddy Urban Meyer. And while I think that they very much soft-pedaled some things within the program, I am finding it quite entertaining watching stories about this program during that period, Dan. And one thing jumped out to me I want to ask you about. Urban Meyer goes into this detailed story about kicking someone off the team that a year later died of a drug overdose and how he beat himself up over that. And that shaped how he handled discipline moving forward, that he was reluctant to kick guys off the team because he always thought about the kid who they kicked off immediately because I think he hit a woman, and that was one of their core rules on the team. You hit a woman, you're kicked off, and then he died a year later. Do you have a regret like that in coaching where you kicked a guy off a team and he ended up getting in trouble or something bad happened that you can recall?
Yeah, I had a kid from West Virginia came to play for me as a freshman. Plays for me as a freshman. Middle of the season, I get a call, panic. His father committed suicide. Now, I got to go tell this kid, right? I bring him over to my house. It's a stormy night. He knows something's wrong. He starts crying in the car. Coach, you got to tell me. Blanket, you got to tell me. And I'm like, hey, your dad did this. Let's get to my house. Let's call your mom. I have a cell phone at the time. I can't remember. We took the team there. We were in Huntington. I drove him there that night, stayed, whatever. He came back to the team. The next year, I was really hard on him. His mother told me, you got to be really hard on him. He doesn't want special treatment. I was really hard on him. He quits the day I was hard on him, but it was also, I didn't know this, it was the 1-year anniversary of his father passing away. He quits. I feel horrible. Whatever happens, the season goes on. The next year, it's a year later, a year and 4 months, we're driving to a game. I get a call from his mom. He says, Coach, you got to help Chris. I go, what's going on? He's addicted to Oxycontin. He's going to die. He's got all these things. I said, look, have Chris and you come to my house. I got a game tomorrow. Come to my house. Be at my house Saturday night. They come to my house Saturday night, and he's withdrawing, right? He's puking in the bathroom. My wife and I decide, he's going to stay with us until he's clean. So he lives with us. My wife does an unbelievable job, gets him into all these rehabs. But my guilt was and still is. I haven't seen him in a few years, but my guilt is, had I taken the time and known the date and how that date, the first year anniversary of suicide, is horrific. Every day's horrific, don't get me wrong. But that date is really impactful. I didn't know it. I coached him too hard for that day. I'm like, man, and I've talked to him about it, man, if I'd have just been smarter and kept you here, because everybody that stayed and played for me for 4 years, every one of them graduated, every one of them is doing wonderful. And I have that regret to this day. I swear to, it's terrible. You know, we did all we could after the fact, but as a coach, man, at least in my world with my Catholic guilt, I think about it. I'm not gonna lie to you and say I think about it every day, but I think about it a lot. In fact, when I saw Urban's statement, I've been trying to reach out and get a hold of him just to reconnect. So, you know, yeah, and it's regret sucks. Let's just put it that way. No matter what you did well for others, one regret in your life, or college coaching life, or maybe your parenting life, everything else is horrible.
Well said, Dan. No regrets here having you on. We love it.
Appreciate you, Dan.
Have a great weekend, and we will catch you up soon.
Thanks. Thank you, guys.
You got it, man. There's Dan Dakich. He's right about the anniversary. It's brutal. But you can see Dan's reaction now.
Yeah, that was a terrific story.
Future on the ACC is next.
GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy thinks that all voters should be able to pass a civics test, so I'm here on Broadway to see how we're doing. Can you name 3 cabinet positions?
Oh, Secretary of State.
Yep.
Secretary of Labor.
Yep.
And we'll go the Secretary of Education.
Correct. What is the capital of Tennessee?
That one, I have no idea. Tallahassee. No, that's Florida. That's Florida. Tennessee. Yeah. No. Do you know the capital of Tennessee? What the hell? These people don't even like me.
All right, I'll give you a hint. You're standing in it. How many U.S. senators are there?
Way too many.
Well, they're way too old, I'll tell you that.
Not enough to do the job right, that's for sure.
If something bad happens to the president, who takes over?
The vice president.
Who is our vice president right now?
What does it start with? What's the first letter start with?
K.
Not sure. I don't know.
Okay. When was the Constitution written?
1976.
1787. How many amendments does the Constitution have?
Sad.
32.
27. How many U.S. senators are there?
Damn. More than 50.
That's true, yes.
Because there's 50 states. There you go.
And how many senators are from each state?
2.
So how many is that?
100.
There you go. It's just basic math. You got it.
I have to really think.
What ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
East coast.
Atlantic, then.
There you go. If something bad happens to the president and the vice president, who takes over?
First one up from Congress?
And who is that?
Some old man.
Do you know what ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
Atlantic, sorry. Wait. What is the capital of Tennessee? Nashville. It's Nashville, guys. How many years do we elect a senator for?
4.
6. What about a congressman?
That's 4.
2.
It's just a trick question, so.
Before he was president, Eisenhower was a general in what war?
World War II. He commanded Operation Overlord and D-Day invasion.
Correct. When was the Constitution written? Before that.
1854.
Before that.
1818.
Before that.
1777.
After that.
1789.
Before that.
1784.
After that.
1785.
After that.
1786.
After that.
1777.
After that. You were so close.
1778.
No.
Kanye West, Kanye 2024, big time. I wrote him in West Virginia, put him on the ballot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? So proudly we hail, so.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Chad,
back,
this
Hutton.
Friday. Are you feeling thirsty today?
It's like we never left. I am getting a little bit thirsty. You know,
Same.
the weekend's upon us. It's good to hydrate. It's really hot here in Nashville, so it's always important to hydrate. I got to coach the 8U softball game at 8 a.m. tomorrow. They bumped the game time up because of the heat. So, you know, no time like the present to hydrate, Hutton.
Now,
this
so when
Friday.
you're coaching, do you prefer the team? You prefer you want to have a night game, but you also don't want to have a Saturday night game.
Saturdays, Hutton, I want the early morning game every time, especially in fall ball. I want to get out of there. I want to get back and watch football, have a full day. I mean, if we could play at 7 a.m., I would do it. So 8 a.m., this is the earliest we'll play. They bumped it up earlier than usual, so always early on Saturdays. You never want those late afternoon games, especially during football season.
Chad, the report is Amazon is joining a handful of other suitors, potential investors, in purchasing ESPN, in talks with Disney about ESPN. Of course, Amazon Prime, all in with Thursday Night Football. They are, despite seeing numbers drop, and it was anticipated going from Fox to Amazon with the streaming-only service, they stepped up again and paid another $1 billion or whatever for the Black Friday game to create a day on their own for them. The Black Friday game, they get a premium matchup as well. But this contract between ESPN and Amazon, according to Front Office Sports, would center on just aiding the development of the full direct-to-consumer version of ESPN. And this would also fuel what we've discussed about more money coming in this manner. That's where you're going to see the next stage of the Super Conference, because that's when you really crank up more and more money. You have the other billions and trillions coming in that will also be paying and getting their fair share of the best matchups across college football. And they're also looking into the discussion of, can Amazon chip in if Florida State, Clemson, if they were to want to bolt from the ACC? Because right now, Florida State and Clemson are the two teams that reportedly are not going to vote yes for Stanford, Cal, or SMU. The others, it seems as though, are going to flip to the other side and vote yes for them to join the conference.
Well, and if the media rights deals are getting too rich even for Disney and ESPN, which that tends to be the case, they're having to be more selective about what they're paying for. I'd say Amazon money or Apple money coming in there would make it conceivable where they could own everything. Yeah. They could own a piece of the pie of every major sport in the world and have it on that platform. Interesting, conflicting reports with this, because the Apple report from Front Office Sports was that they were going to buy all of ESPN, and that would be about $50 billion. The Amazon report is a minority stake in ESPN. Mm-hmm. So how does that differ? What does that look like? Is Prime Video distributing some of it? I asked this question about Apple. If you buy ESPN for $50 billion, are you keeping the ESPN brand and just running it as a subsidiary of Apple? Or are you morphing it all into Apple TV or Apple Sports, where you have Apple TV Plus and you have Apple Sports or whatever you want to call it? That's a separate brand. I think you're probably buying ESPN and keeping the ESPN name for whoever does that. So then the minority part of this with Amazon would make a lot of sense. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes with ESPN, because the other report is it's going to be between $20 and $35 a month starting out for the direct-to-consumer ESPN membership. It's a good bit of money.
Well, but if you were
to have all of it, but if you have Amazon and Apple involved in it, Hutton, they're going to have everything.
But if you were
so if you're a sports fan, you're going to pay for it.
If you were paying for a regional sports network like Nesson or MSG, you were paying $30. It was $29, right?
And that's for the that is really attacking the diehard, Yankees, Red Sox fan.
Yeah.
Whoever may be for those networks
but this would
to
be
get them to
attacking
watch
the
those games.
sports fan.
Absolutely.
So they could charge whatever they wanted, really. If you're owning the SEC in that? Think about what SEC fans would pay.
Yeah, it's also, I just look at all this and I think, we had it right with television and cable. And then because we got new technology with streaming, we flipped the entertainment world on its head. And now what everybody's finding out is, man, we were pretty smart the way we had it before, and that was very profitable. Let's kind of go back to that. So now we're just piecemealing it where it's going to be way more for the consumer to pay for everything they want through direct-to-consumer streaming services. And ESPN would be another one. And ESPN makes more than anyone else off of cable subscriptions. But they're losing the cable subscriptions.
They're charging less for ESPN Plus than they are charging for the cable subscriber. And what the average person pays on their cable bill, it's roughly $10 a month of your cable bill, satellite bill, whatever, is going to ESPN. And they're charging, what, $7.99 or something for ESPN Plus a month?
Yeah, now it would be $30. $29.99 is the talk that if they go away from cable and it's all on digital streaming, direct-to-consumer, it's going to be about $30 a month. Also, the reports about leagues partnering with them in a minority stake. So all the different possibilities we have here. Is it Apple buying the entirety of ESPN from Disney? Is it Amazon partnering with Disney? Is it some sort of conglomerate of NBA, MLB, and Amazon buying 49% of ESPN from Disney? There's a lot of possibilities of where this thing could go. But here's my one prediction. Based on reports of what's happening, all of you, every single one of you, you're going to pay for it.
Well,
you're going to buy it.
There's no...
if you're watching this right now, you have at least a passing interest in sports. I'm telling you, you're going to pay for whatever this is when they get a hold of it, because they're going to control everything.
But they're
going to have every sport.
I think it's priced at a very reasonable amount, personally. Because Netflix continues to raise prices, and everyone complains about it, and then everyone pays the money.
Yeah.
I haven't heard
I'm not saying they're not going to. I'm saying you are absolutely going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But they could be $50. And I think a month, you're going to pay for it.
If I'm forgetting everything, you're saying? Yeah.
What would the sports fan pay? What are we watching right now live?
That's what I'm saying.
It's only sports.
Yeah.
That's what all the data out there shows us. So if it's only sports, you're going to pay whatever they tell you to pay. And guess what Apple and Amazon and all these companies are great at doing? Naming a price and getting you to fork it over.
How about Verizon being named in this? Verizon's the other company, too, that Front Office Sports says is also negotiating, or at least opening talks about this platform of the direct-to-consumer model, not the full purchase of ESPN. But Verizon is also in the mix.
I also look
When's
at
the last time you've heard of Verizon?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I also think about, what do the leagues really want in all this? Because while that's a lot more money coming into ESPN that they could now spend in rights fees, you're also eliminating an enormous competitor, either Prime Video or ESPN. How did Prime Video spend so much in the Thursday night package? Because they had tons of competition for it, and it drove up the price. Well, if Apple, who wants to get into live sports, suddenly is ESPN, and you've got them merging in the same, well, that's one less huge, deep-pocketed competitor for your rights fees for, and I'm not just talking about NFL, which is printing money and will continue to do so. I'm talking NBA. I'm talking ATP. I'm talking Formula One. I'm talking every other sport that's out there. Big 12. I mean, go down the list. That eliminates a high-money competitor from what you could be getting for rights fees if one of them buys the other.
But they're both in rights fees, though, that don't expire until 2033 with the NFL. Year one of this new TV deal happens this year. And that's in total, it's $110 billion across all platforms. And it also includes, or maybe it doesn't include, I'm looking at the story that does include this, what Amazon just ponied up to get for the Black Friday game moving forward.
It's nuts.
But you know what this is? This, you may look at it like, oh, there's Amazon's coming with ESPN here, and okay, what happens in 2030? Think about what this means for the SEC and the Big Ten, specifically the commissioners, and what they're looking to do and when. If all of this is going down, and then you have the college football playoff contract, which is up 3 years from this season, but 2 years is the only length of the duration of time for the new model of the expansion to 12. Think about the money that's going to be involved now from that angle, too. You know, ESPN wants to own that. They've owned the college football playoff. And with Amazon coming in, now they can outspend anyone that wants to come in and bid for it.
It's a brave new world that we're entering.
What's the best option, do you think? Is it Amazon?
For ESPN?
Yeah. Is the best option for them to sell total
I think it
and be
depends
owned
on
by
what,
Apple, or is it the best option to do the
split?
Yeah.
I think probably the split. It depends on if it's for the company or the consumer, what is best. I think the split is probably better because you're kind of combining forces at that point of Disney and another huge corporation. Apple, for instance, if they bought it outright for $50 billion, well, Apple can spend what they want. They're inheriting all those contracts that ESPN had.
And all of that adds up to around $49 billion.
I think, though, the odds of – and I'm looking out for the consumer here.
Right.
I think the odds of Amazon owning a smaller percentage of it, or 30, 40%, whatever, and not the majority of it, and putting their influx of money in that they could spend on rights fees, I think that makes it better for a one-stop shop. So if you're spending that $30 or $40 a month, you're going to feel like – my parents are a great example. My parents, if there's a sporting event on, they just turn to ESPN. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not on ESPN. It's on this channel. And it just blows their mind that anything could be anywhere else. Well, that's what we'll all do. We'll just go to Apple Plus, and we'll go to that and say, oh, this game, it's got to be on there, right? How is it not on here? It'll be like my 80-year-old, almost 80-year-old dad. How is the game not on this pack? I pay $40 for it. But in reality, it will be on that if they have all of the money.
Yeah, it should be. And I wonder, too, if they go through the local the NFL, for instance, if it's a Thursday night package, the in-market games can be seen on a local channel, even though it's on Amazon, right? So I wonder if to cater to that audience who's probably watching their team and is probably around their market or their state, I wonder if they also have that option. But that would also mean the local affiliate would have to bid to air that game.
How many years are we away where most Americans understand how to work a streaming service? I still don't think we're completely there. Well, most Americans can. We're definitely at the point where people understand smartphones. Even our parents' age can understand how to text and put emojis in and do all of that.
The fact that my mom is texting tells me it's
I think
happening sooner rather than later. They're in their 60s.
The fact that my mom is sending emojis shows me that we've reached that point. But how long will it take until my parents know how to go to a streaming service and actually search and watch different shows?
They don't.
Because I have to physically go to a show, like to Paramount
Plus, there and do it?
To put it on Lioness on there, the next Taylor Sheridan show, because they love Yellowstone, so they want the Taylor Sheridan shows. I have to go in, show them how to search for it, and put it up there, and they are not going to watch another episode unless I tell them one has dropped, and they go in, and it magically appears at the top of their queue. They will not find it if not.
I kind of miss
that
feeling.
So we're still far away from people understanding all of it.
Chad, we are the dying generation of not knowing what social media was like.
Yeah, half our life without internet and social media, and half our life with it.
Not having a cell phone. I have no idea. I may find out in 3 days. Didn't care.
I would have to get phone numbers my freshman year of college from girls to their dorm. I'd have to call the dorm and ask their roommate if they were home. This was the era in which I grew up in.
You up?
Yeah. Is Cassie in right now? Oh, this isn't Cassie? Sorry. Wrong number again. I got fed a fake number again.
You mean Carly?
It happened again. Happens all the time.
Carly. Carly lives here. Oh, yeah, Carly.
Oh, Callie. Callie, got it. That's her name, yes.
Coming up.
The Chi Omega.
Yeah.
Is there a Chi Omega here? You just identify by sorority?
She's being initiated, Curly.
Yes,
Chad,
she's in a coffin.
Let's get into the ACC discussion because all of a sudden it sounds like Stanford and Cal, maybe even SMU, are about to join the conference, and it's because they're willing to not take that much to join. Next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick, the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted,
he did
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. We are getting you through the next two and into your weekend. It's our goal each day. 6 p.m. Eastern, as fast as possible. Streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, anywhere you can stream the show. We hope to be there. And search out OutKick. Hope you'll subscribe. Give us the like. Join Chad in the chat as well. And on this great radio platform and partner, we say thank you. Chad, college football kicking off later this weekend. We've got next week a handful of really good games that we are going to dive in on throughout the week. It is ball season, and can't wait for football discussion. Can't wait to.
By the way, Thursday night alone of next week, Florida in Salt Lake City taking on Utah. Rematch of last year's game.
And remember that game.
Yeah, well, it was terrific.
Utah should. I mean, everyone at one point were like, "What's going on with this spread?" Like, Utah, load up. And then Florida, Anthony Richardson happened.
Yeah, Florida won, and then Anthony Richardson
didn't happen.
Anthony Richardson happened again with the inconsistency against Kentucky the very next week. And Nebraska at Minnesota on Thursday night. So football is here. Pumped up.
Former Utah quarterback. Or is he still there?
Cam Rising?
Yeah.
He's still there.
Still there, yeah. Okay, so he didn't graduate. Yeah, he's back. Man. And now Anthony Richardson's not back.
I think it's last I checked, 7.5.
That's why I'm asking.
Utah's favored by 7.5 at home at last check. I've been eyeing that line.
Okay. We did last year too.
I'm thinking the opposite based on last year's result. I would take the Gators to cover at this point.
Chad, so in the ACC, and I'm pumped about football being back because it's been dominated in college football right now about conference realignment, who survives, who doesn't, who's on the move next. And, last week, the discussion was about Florida State and Clemson, NC State and North Carolina not voting yes, even though Notre Dame was lobbying, trying to push for Stanford and Cal to join the ACC. Well, this was Thursday or Friday of the previous week. After last weekend, reports are that you have Laura Bush, former First Lady, Condoleezza Rice as well, lobbying on behalf of SMU and Stanford, respectively. Cal's along for the ride with this. And now there's another vote. And reports are that the vote seems to be leaning towards only two teams now, not the four, voting no. Florida State and Clemson will hold firm. Meanwhile, it seems as though North Carolina and NC State would be the other two. Again, that's the theory. That's the observation, not what is definitive. But what has also changed are the numbers. So SMU is reportedly through Ross Dellinger of SI SMU willing to not take a rights fee for a reported 7 years, up to 7 years.
Which is insane.
Meanwhile, Stanford and Cal are reportedly going to offer to only take around, there's like a range here, but around 30% of the tier money that ESPN, based on the rights contract, would then give more to the ACC. So in total, when you add everything up, because that would end up being about $7 to $10 million each for Stanford and Cal annually, it ends up being around $55 million in the pot that the ACC will be able to distribute. Normally, you distribute that money evenly. But now you have Florida State and Clemson, and there are others, but Florida State and Clemson that have banged the drum about, hey, we need more of the fair share in media rights than the others. We're trying to survive here. We're keeping everyone afloat. We're the ones pulling the ratings. We're the ones winning. We're the ones with a chance to go to the college football playoff. We need our fair share. So does this just come down to how they distribute the $55 million annually? Or is this more about, well, Florida State's been so vocal here. We've got the votes to bring them in, meaning Stanford and Cal, maybe even SMU. Do we really even have to appease them right now if they're already talking about leaving in 12 months, which has been their stated goal? It's not a matter of if, but when and how. How would you handle it if you're Jim Phillips? That's the biggest thing. To me, it's not about if they have enough votes. It's not what do they bring to the conference. It's about how do you distribute the money that you're going to have extra based on the additions that ESPN would be paying, which would be a Tier 1 price for Stanford and Cal and SMU to join, and SMU's waiving their price tag. They're not going to take the money that the other schools would be distributing evenly.
I don't care at all what Florida State thinks on the additions of it if I'm Jim Phillips. To answer your question on that one, Hutton.
Yeah, because the vote would pass.
Yeah, and look, if they're the dissenting vote, and it's just them and Clemson, okay, that's fine. You've already stated publicly that you feel like you're entitled to more of a share or a higher share, more money, and that you'll be looking around at options. Okay, great.
And they spoke about it in the spring, too. At the spring meetings, the ACC said they were going to distribute it in a different manner.
Yeah, and look, if you want to explore options of what it's going to cost you to break the grant of rights here and to do that with us, okay, that's going to be more money for us. In the meantime, we're going to try to do things to make sure that this conference is stable for the long term. Because there are other programs out there that are so concerned about the future of sport and the future of college football and where they may be and finding that seat in this big national game of musical chairs that they are willing to take $0 for 7 years or up to 7 years in media rights fees. That's SMU. That may be Cal and Stanford to some lesser extent of what they're going to take or pass on for the next few years, just for future security in a major conference. And if these major conferences break away from the NCAA and form their own mega conference, they want a seat at the table. That's it. So if you're Jim Phillips in the ACC, I cannot be concerned about a malcontent right now that is locked into my conference. They are under contract for a long time. So if Florida State wants to pay the out to get out and join the SEC, if the SEC even wants them, or Clemson wants to figure that out, have at it. But I'm making moves right now based on what's going to make all of my membership more money long term while also securing my financial feasibility for the future. That's it. Those are the only decisions that I'm making. And if SMU, Cal, and Stanford don't bring much to the table in that regard, and they're not going to add to the pockets of my member institutions, including Florida State and Clemson right now, I'm passing on them. So that's how all these decisions are being made, and that's what Jim Phillips should be thinking.
And SMU, to me, I mean, they're not even asking for the 30%. Again, all being reported by Sports Illustrated and others. They weren't even brought up in the last vote. Reports where they weren't even discussed when they voted on Stanford and Cal. So they've come back with this. And monetarily, it's more than just giving up on the $7 to $10 million annually, because right now, SMU through the American Athletic Conference, the AAC hands out about a little more than $8 million a year on their television rights deal in football. So they would be passing on that revenue. They've got 5 years left on that contract. So you look at that, and it comes out to around $42 million is what they'd be passing on. Plus, unlike Cincinnati and South Florida and Houston, because they were announced to the Big 12, but they didn't leave until further down the road. This would be a quick exit, and Cincinnati, South Florida, and Houston paid around $18 million of exit fees. SMU, it's probably going to be more than that. And so this is more of the investment of how do we stay alive and how do we show that we have plenty of donors with deep pockets as well. And they do. They have Laura Bush.
Yeah, SMU got at the table because all their money and their alumni and influential people that are associated with them got them to the table and called the ACC and said, you need to consider us.
But a week and a half ago, they weren't even considered, but they were mentioned and not even brought up in the vote. I just don't know why they held the vote the first time. It's very interesting. Going back to,
they rushed it.
Danny White, and Tony Elliott going back and forth. Who offered, who didn't, was there an official offer or not? Normally you don't offer until you know the guy's going to accept the offer. There's one official offer to a coach in a coaching search.
It's
you
probably,
don't take a vote until you have the votes, right?
Yeah, it's semantics to some extent on some of this, but I think everyone just felt rushed and panicked on all sides because they saw right before them everything happened so quickly with Oregon and Washington leaving. First it was the four corner schools, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah. They left. Then Oregon, Washington, and everyone freaked out. And boards were being called, and school presidents, and what do we do with Stanford and Cal, and how valuable are they? I think they rushed a vote on it. Now they're sober-minded, taking a little bit of time, taking a deep breath, and they're coming back to the table to vote again. I see no problem with it. The first one's probably just rushed a bit.
Also, you had the Washington State president who said, and he's the chair of the board of the Pac-12, and he said, it was actually Oregon and Washington that left that broke us, and it was Fox that had, he's saying this, Fox is the one that lobbied the Big Ten to go ahead and add them. And I'm thinking, that's not what broke you. All the Pac-12 did was sit around and point fingers. And Oregon and Washington on that Friday morning, Chad, had allowed George Klaufkoff one last-ditch effort. And he presented the media rights deal that eventually got out, which was the $25 million base. How can they continue in this Pac-4, which is really now a Pac-2, to point fingers at everyone else instead of just looking in the mirror and thinking, we didn't see what was coming even though everyone told us because we were told, sit tight, there's going to be a media rights deal coming.
Yeah,
That's what broke them.
I think if you look back in hindsight, all of them can sit and really think deeply on where did it go wrong and could we have prevented this? The answer is yes. This was not inevitable. It was poor foresight. It was poor leadership by the Pac-12. They should have done some things initially. The Big 12 coming to them wanting to merge in some way and create this West Super Conference would have worked and would have secured them for the future. So they made poor decisions. They were a bit arrogant, George Klaufkoff included. I think he overspoke and overpromised on what the market actually was bearing and what he could deliver. And because of that, there is no more Pac-12, which is not, I still would argue, it's not a great thing for college sports or college football that this once proud conference is no more. But this is where we're headed. If you're mismanaged, if you can't see the future, at least to some extent, then you're going to have more issues like this where conferences are going away.
Chad, I think there's a quarterback that's going away, but not in the near future. I think the trade in the NFL that's going to be the biggest one moving forward is with the organization that made several trades yesterday. They acquired Josh Dobbs. Arizona did. They traded away Josh Jones, their offensive tackle. They traded away Isaiah Simmons, their former 8th overall pick in 2020, to the New York Giants for a 7th-round pick in return that DeAndre Hopkins retweeted or posted or whatever and said had laughing emojis at, their loss. I think Kyler Murray is going to be traded. I think Arizona would like that to happen. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. He continues to rehab the ACL. But if you look at, they've brought in Dobbs. We went through their quarterback crop yesterday. It's not a who's who list. It's not like, there's a journeyman there that's been the backup for his career. Not even that. Chad, they have the potential of being not just really bad, but awful. And they also have the potential of holding the first 2 picks in the NFL draft next April. If that's the case, you're going quarterback. You're going Caleb Williams, in theory. And what are you doing with Kyler Murray, who just signed an extension at the beginning of last offseason? That's the trade that will happen. And based on what happened yesterday and knowing how this roster was not assessed much this offseason, knowing that Jonathan Gannon is the head coach and Monty Ossenfort's the first-time GM there, all the moves have pointed, and all the acquisitions in the draft this past year were about building draft capital for the future. Kyler Murray is available for NFL teams. Trey Lance is too, but the real quarterback that's available is Kyler Murray. And I wonder what the value is for Murray around the trade deadline of this year. Because this is there's not going to be a team that picks up the phone for him. There's a team that picked up the phone and called Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger a year ago. There will be a team that picks up the phone and says, hey, how bad is Murray's about to come back? Are you sure you want to play him? Because you're going for the first 2 picks in the NFL draft. that would be a reason enough to see what kind of deal you could get at the deadline instead of waiting until the offseason and driving the bargain up with other teams. If you're down your quarterback.
Based on the direction the Cardinals are heading right now with that roster, maybe they'd be a good option for the Pac-12 to add. They can just add the Arizona Cardinals this year.
And bring Bama to the NFL.
I look forward to that game in Pullman, Washington, between the Cardinals, led by Josh Dobbs, and Washington State this year. Could be a good game.
Yeah.
Oregon State with DJ Uiagalelei, a top 20 team nationally going into it. That could be a good game for these Arizona Cardinals. This team sucks. This roster's bad. This is a fire sale. They want to finish last in the NFL. They want to have those top 2 picks. The best thing that can happen for the Arizona Cardinals is for a stud quarterback to get injured in week 1 or 2.
That doesn't help them because Murray's coming off the ACL.
Yeah.
He's not available then.
But
by the deadline, by Halloween, he could be.
Yeah. But they need someone to get injured during the season to where they need to make a move, and Kyler Murray is the best option available, outside of Josh Dobbs, who they just acquired. But, no, I'm with you. I think that's the best thing that could possibly happen.
Because didn't the Niners call up Roethlisberger? That's what Ben said.
It's so odd that they're in this situation when you see everyone that made the decisions on Kyler Murray, everything has transitioned since then. So it's a completely different line of thinking now.
Who would Arizona want to draft next year?
Caleb Williams.
Chad's take on Caleb Williams and, what he's going for, which is a repeat of the Heisman Trophy and the historical significance of that. That's next on Hot Mic.
Turner he was struggling. They were booing the hell out of him in Philly. On August 4th, his numbers were this: through 108 games, he's hitting 236 with a 289 on base percentage and a 656 OPS with 10 homers and 35 RBIs through 108 games. The Phillies crowd gives him a standing ovation. And it's not a coincidence, guys. To you fans out there, there are players who you can trigger in a really good way. Since then, in the 14 games since then, 370, 414 on base percentage, 117 OPS, 4 homers, 12 RBIs. Okay, not a coincidence. This game, every athletic endeavor at this level is about confidence. It's all confidence. And there's a positive, and for anybody that's ever done sports psychology, there's a physical component to emotions. And by that, I mean your body releases different chemicals when you're happy, sad, depressed, pressured, motivated, all those things. And as an athlete, I can speak from personal experience. In October, I was a different human being. And I felt different. And my emotions were different. And my adrenaline was different. And when I pitched in front of big crowds when I pitched in Yankee Stadium, I was different. The crowds create those things, home and away. I remember in 1993 when we were playing the Braves in the playoffs. This was the time of the politically incorrect tomahawk chop that the Atlanta fans were doing. It's kind of when it started. And I remember they were doing that in Game 5. And Terry Mulholland told me before that game, he said, think about this, man. You have a chance to go out there and stop 45,000 people from talking and being emotional. And it led to the 2001 quote when I said, or 2004, when I said, I can't think of anything more enjoyable than making 55,000 people from New York shut up. And that's a sign of respect, by the way, New York fans, always was. But we feed off this stuff, man. The good players do anyway. You know what? I'll say it, and you hear it here first, and I don't want to be first, but Aaron Boone's going to get fired, and that's going to suck because none of this is his fault. And every player in Yankee pinstripes and these guys know Aaron, and I promise you they care very deeply about this guy. He's the kind of guy that warrants that kind of emotion. Every one of them should feel like crap because it's their fault he's going to get fired, period. You couldn't ask for a better, more calming influence. I guarantee you there's no panic in his voice. But correct me if I'm wrong, but as a player, it always felt like Yankee fans wanted to see panic when they were losing. They didn't just want to panic; they wanted the organization to panic, right? You heard, I think earlier, what was it last show? Didn't we, John? We were talking about last show. Trade Judge, trade Cole, blow it up, and it's like, no, number one, and you almost can't, number two. So if you can't fire the players, and firing anybody else would be meaningless to the field results, you got to fire the manager, the coaching staff. And unfortunately, I think that we're about to see that. And that sucks because it's not his fault.
Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on. 6th the Peabody Air location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Happy Friday to you. Chad, let's get to the weekend, shall we?
We shall.
We had Dan Dakich on earlier today. We've got you for the rest of the hour and a half talking all things ball and headlines going into the weekend. Chad, Caleb Williams made some headlines yesterday when he's discussing, well, not necessarily. I'm not necessarily just going to automatically declare for the draft after this year. He could. Drake May can as well. The expectation is they're the top 2 quarterbacks next year, and it's really undisputed. Caleb Williams is the number 1 overall pick. He's also going for back-to-back Heisman wins. Historical significance in that regard is rare. And he is set up to put up a ton of numbers. He's set up to dominate. How do you think it comes across as we watch him this year, Chad?
This gets started tomorrow night, a late night against San Jose State. So this is timely right here when we talk about Caleb Williams. They're a 31-point favorite in that game. They need to win by 62, and he needs to throw every touchdown pass in that game to get started to win the Heisman again. That's probably what needs to happen. Caleb Williams in 2022. 4,537 yards, 42 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Lost 1 regular season game to Utah. Lost again to Utah in the Pac-12 championship game. The next week, won the Heisman Trophy. Then lost to Tulane in their bowl game, in their New Year's Six game. Here's what I know about the history of the Heisman Trophy and those that return to try to win a second one in the more modern era. Not in the early 70s, the last time this happened, and we had a repeat winner, and we had a 2-time winner. If you set the bar way up here one year, it's not good enough just to reach that bar again. You got to go over, above, and beyond that bar the next year. Caleb Williams and this offense with Lincoln Riley and what they have returning, and they got a team that could be in the playoff at the end of the year, I think he's got what it takes to deliver even better stats than he did a year ago. And that sounds insane when I talk about 42 touchdowns to 5 interceptions in 2022. But I know this about the Heisman voter, and I know this about the history of college football. And this can be true about a lot of sports and a lot of things in life. We want what's next. We want the sensation. We want the transfer that went to the new school that's now lighting it up. Guess who that was a year ago? Oh, Caleb Williams, who transferred from Oklahoma. We want the freshman on the scene. We want Johnny Football that came out of nowhere at Texas A&M back in the day. Or we want to hype up the guy that's been building and building and building to break through and win that Heisman Trophy. There's a lot of things that we want to see with the Heisman. One thing that we have not wanted to see is a back-to-back winner. I think it's very difficult to do. One of the most difficult things to do. Because once you win that Heisman, and there's so many players in college football and so many teams, it is difficult to wow anyone. Can Caleb Williams wow us again at USC? I think he can. I think it's going to be very difficult. But Hutton, in order to do so, he's going to have to go above and beyond what he accomplished a year ago statistically, and probably USC is going to have to be undefeated. I think that may be what it takes for him to win it again.
I need to preface what I'm saying by saying you're right. That's how it should be. I wish you voted for the Heisman because Heisman voters didn't watch him last year. They don't care about this game tomorrow.
He was the safest of the guys to vote.
They had no one else left. If
Yeah.
we're just being honest, Hendon Hooker was hurt and C.J. Stroud sucked against Michigan. Who are you voting for?
The guy on the West Coast with ridiculous
that you haven't
numbers.
watched but one time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the honest reaction I had to the Heisman race last year. He was the best of the rest. And that sucks because while, yeah, USC can go out and win 62-0 tomorrow against San Jose State, no, voters aren't paying attention to that. Voters are going to be paying attention whenever USC, down the home stretch of the season, is taking on Washington and Oregon and UCLA to close out the year. When they take on and host this year Utah. That's just the honest truth about the vast majority. There are solid Heisman voters. There are way too many of them, though. You think that the average Heisman voter is sitting around watching as many games as they claim? Yeah, they want to be wowed, but they need to be wowed on the national games of significance when they're actually tuned into the channel. And I guarantee you, the average Heisman voter can't tell you what channel USC and San Jose State will be playing on. That's the issue. But, I mean, I also agree, like when a C.J. Stroud doesn't perform, and the other finalist was Max Duggan and Stetson Bennett, who had not been mentioned at all until Hendon Hooker got hurt. He was also a finalist. It's like the votes spread around, and Williams, who was great, he, to me, was not even close to winning the Heisman with 3 games to play a year ago.
You know what bothers me?
Do you agree with what I'm saying?
I agree, totally. You know what bothers me about Heisman voters now? I hear from too many of them. Let me explain.
Okay.
Everyone's got an outlet now, right? So writers host radio shows, or they make frequent appearance on radio shows, or they have their own podcast, or they're on a digital show somewhere. And so many people have a Heisman vote. I don't have a Heisman vote, and I'm not petitioning for one. I'm not saying that I necessarily want one. But when I hear from Heisman voters, and I hear it all the time. I consume a ton of sports media, sports talk, digital shows, TV shows, all of that. I'm watching a lot of it. And when I hear the same BS, the same national narrative, I have a Heisman vote, and I really think that Hendon Hooker needs to do this and this, to secure the Heisman. I'm thinking, I've heard that from everyone. Have a different opinion from someone else. Everyone can tell when someone is coasting by and just listening to something and then regurgitating that opinion and using it as their own. And I hear from far too many Heisman voters that when I hear the same lines over and over again, and I'm never forced to think one way or the other, it's just accepted as common knowledge, it bothers me. Well, I think we hear from too many Heisman voters now.
Let me also...
And they show their ignorance to the sport when they start talking about it.
This is... Yes. This is the... I'm lumping in everyone. It's just the groupthink mentality with this. But here, to their credit, the buzz is really created through the first half of the season. Williams was doing that, but I'm here to tell you, the vast majority of those voters are watching the SEC and the Big Ten. And then USC's schedule is back heavy. That makes sense if you're just a college football fan. But the other thing is, you do have the buzz that's created initially that I think for the most part is organic. C.J. Stroud was the front runner going in a year ago. Fine. There's a reason why we have Caleb Williams as the front runner now. He's all people are talking about. When does Drake May really become part of that discussion? May was part of this discussion too, and he didn't end up in New York. Hendon Hooker was a part of the whole talk, and that was more organic because no one was talking about Hendon Hooker in the preseason as a Heisman guy. They just were not. And, now we're seeing the next step of, okay, Hooker was legitimate. Williams' numbers were there. Everyone wanted C.J. Stroud to win it. They were looking for a reason. The first half against Michigan, he's your Heisman winner until he wasn't. And who was left healthy? It's Caleb Williams. I do think there are very qualified football analysts and those that love the game. I do think there are far too many voters who don't really love the game, that grind it on a late West Coast game on Saturday, or DVR something and watch it on a Monday because they hold a vote of significance. That's really my big beef with it. I don't think the final score, they can't lose. He can't have a dud against San Jose State. I don't think the final score affects the voters' minds because the voters reflecting on the previous 3 weeks instead of the previous 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, I also think too often, back to the groupthink mentality, we're only looking at the best player on the best teams or best two teams.
Yeah.
And they always get a majority of the votes because, that's the game of the week quite often, are those teams that are 1 and 2.
Going to your point, though, there are the occasional Randy Moss at Marshall that capture the attention, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't win, but he's there. You're right. Like you are looking for the storyline.
Well, that happens too often. And here's an example. So I'm watching Swamp Kings right now. Tim Tebow won the Heisman in their worst year. They were 9-3 while he was there. They didn't win it in 2006 when he was a fill-in substitute for Chris Leak.
Yep.
Didn't win it in 2008 when they won the national title. He won it in 2007 as a sophomore in a year they lost 3 games. But I kind of like that because that's the year he had just absurd stats.
Right.
And he was the best player in college football even though his team lost 3 games. Drake May is a great example.
Yes.
North Carolina might go 7-5 in the ACC. But Drake may very well be the best player in college football and put up numbers that shows that. They may go 8-4. They may go 9-3. But is there a win total that makes Drake May more worthy in the eyes of Heisman voters? Or are we really looking at who's the best player in college football?
I know, I agree.
But I don't think 7-5 North Carolina, led by Drake May, who's doing everything better than anyone else in America, has a chance at winning a Heisman Trophy.
Well, what did they start? Were they 8-1 last year? They were unbeaten
got off to a great
home.
start.
And then
they fell apart late.
They did. But I'm not saying you already know who's winning. We didn't know Joe Burrow was going to be Joe Burrow when he won the Heisman.
No.
But when it's up in the air, you just go to group. We weren't talking about Caleb Williams until he was flipping off Utah, giving the Heisman pose with his nails painted. That's when he started to get some buzz because people actually watched the game. We knew his name, and we knew he was at Oklahoma and went there with Lincoln Riley. But, I want the start of the season to matter, and it does for the guys who already have it matters for Caleb Williams that he can't lose early based on the schedule.
Well, I want everyone to at least, even if you're not up late watching USC, San Jose State, I get it. You might have something better to do. But let's pay attention to that box score. Let's go back and watch those highlights, and let's see what Caleb Williams looks like and does because
you know what the
Heisman campaign to win 2 starts Saturday night, and I just think it's got to be a complete freak show statistically for him in order to win it for a second time.
I want to see that too. I want to pay it.
And they might get there.
The lazy argument would be, he'll be benched by the third quarter anyway. They'll have their third string guy in, taking snaps. Well, if that's the case,
and that may be the case.
That's why they treat it as a throwaway. It's not worth watching.
You know what you can do as a 31-point favorite? You can put up some really good numbers in 3 quarters, 2.5 quarters. Hendon Hooker's a good example of that. Look how many passes Joe Milton attempted last year in mop-up duty, but Hendon Hooker's stats were that of a Heisman Trophy winner.
You're right.
For pretty much all the season until he got hurt in the second
and
last game.
And that was undisputed. Hey, and also on this, USC with a fantastic offense. They lose Addison. They lose another starter as well. They've got the portal. They've really hit the portal. They have a South Carolina transfer. They have the second leading receiver in college football over there now. But the defense is really that.
The guy from Arizona, the transfer from Arizona is a receiver that was a big-time stat guy, yeah.
Their defense, though, determines whether or not they're a college football playoff team. They were in the bottom of the FBS in nearly every category you can think of, except for turnovers forced. But they have to be so much better. And think about how they finished the season in the bowl game against Tulane.
And they got
up 15 with 3 minutes to go?
Yeah, and they
5
couldn't
minutes
do
to
anything.
go?
And they got the label that no football program wants to get, soft.
Yes.
That defense was seen as soft. Offensively, they're great. They were great a year ago. They're going to be great again this year, but they got to be a lot better on defense. And it's one of those programs that everybody says, well, you just got to be okay. If you're going to win a national title, you still got to be good on defense. No, even if your offense is ridiculous. Now, to get to 9-3, 10-2, yeah, you can just be okay at times with an offense like that and win 9 games.
Right.
But if you're going to win a national title, even if you're a video game on offense, you got to have a really good defense. Also, we've seen that time and time again.
Speaking of video games, Williams is not happy with the payouts for NCAA 24. They continue to say that this game is going to be released on time next year. I don't know how they continue to say it based on it. The initial offer was what, $500 per player for NIL?
I love this game.
I do too.
I don't play video games anymore. I would probably play this game if given the opportunity. I don't have the game console to do it. But if someone offered me the game console and the game, I would definitely play it again. But this is so mind-numbing to me to think about all of the possibilities and everything they're going to have to do to make this thing work with the payouts and everything else. It's difficult for me to fathom the different levels at which they have to make this work. It's so hard now.
He wants his fair share. He's like, he compared with Ross Dellinger. Caleb Williams told him, he's like, hey, think about if, you have the straight A student, there's another kid whose strong suit isn't school, and he gets B's or B minuses. How fair would it be if you had the same grade?
Yeah.
So he's like,
well, and Caleb Williams is now in a world where he's making a lot of money for his name, image, likeness. He's not doing anything for free. He knows his value. The people working with him know his value also.
Hey, his vacation schedule was legit. He's been traveling.
Johnny Manziel-like.
London. He walked the runway at the Paris Fashion Show. He attended an F1 race in Monaco. Threw out the first pitch at a Dodgers game. Life is good.
Pays to be the USC quarterback. And that good. And a Heisman Trophy
pays
winner.
Better as a 2-time Heisman Trophy winner.
That's
More
right.
coming on Hot Mine.
Hey, Davey Hudson of OutKick here. We are at SEC Media Days 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to go talk to some players, see what they have to say. What's the best purchase you've made from an NIL deal so far?
Tag watch right here.
Far.
Best purchase? I probably just give it back to my son for real. That's probably my best purchase every time.
Man, pay my truck off. Definitely.
A house. My wife and I bought a house, so that's been huge. Being able to save that money up and buy a house.
This chain here.
The best purchase? I'd probably say helping my mom out with school.
Ooh, the best purchase? Probably the shoes. The shoes I got on right now.
The best purchase I made, well, the best NIL deal I've had is free steaks from Marksbury Farms, so keep me fed and beefed up.
With
Ooh, purchase? Probably a new golf bag. Or recently I played TPC Sawgrass this past weekend, and that was from I used that money from a deal I made, so that's up there too.
Probably getting my sister through college, helping my family out a lot. That's probably my best purchase I've done.
Best purchase? Probably my my mom and dad anniversary gift.
The best purchase I've made? I got a yoga mat the other day, and that's helped me a lot. Just flexibility and everything like that, so probably that.
Best purchase? My smile. Best purchase? I would say my best purchase was having my school supply drive.
Landon, what is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Remember the Titans for sure. Sport movie, I say Love and Basketball. That's my favorite.
Got to be Remember the Titans for sure.
Remember the Titans. I mean, it's top movie ever.
Probably Longest Yard.
I'd probably say Like Mike with Bow Wow.
Yeah.
My favorite sports movie, Remember the Titans.
Air Bud.
Perfect answer, actually.
I really don't know. I don't have one.
Movie? I haven't seen many, but does Sandlot count?
Favorite sports movie of all time? Probably Coach Carter.
Ooh, sports movie. Probably The Express.
Happy Gilmore.
The Little Giants.
Amari, what was your most favorite sports movie growing up?
Remember the Titans.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
I don't know the other one, but definitely not Barbie.
Oppenheimer, gotta be. I'm not against the Barbie movie though. I tried to recommend it. I was shut down pretty fast.
Oppenheimer. Come on now. You don't need to ask me that question. Oppenheimer looks good though.
What's Oppenheimer?
It's a movie about the atomic bomb. It's the big thing that comes out this Thursday.
Yeah, probably that.
Oppenheimer.
Wait, what was the other one?
Barbie or Oppenheimer?
The opposite of Barbie. The opposite of Barbie. Yeah, so I'm not.
We're going to see Oppenheimer and then follow with Barbie.
Solid choice.
I don't even know what Oppenheimer is. I don't want to see Barbie, though.
Oppenheimer, 100%.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Say a little bit louder.
Oppenheimer.
Oh, we're going to watch both of them. Maybe on the same night. We'll probably watch. I think you got to watch Barbie first. Just so you're not, Oppenheimer might be a little too intense. You know what I'm saying? So you warm up with Barbie and then you go to the Oppenheimer.
The second one, Oppenheimer.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
Barbie.
Hot Mike with Hutton with Row rolls on. Glad you're with us on this Friday edition. We've got plenty of discussion coming up on NFL preseason, which will wrap up this evening. You've got some starters playing, some starters not, specifically at quarterback, and Mike Tomlin has no problem playing his. Steelers and Kenny Pickett look really good right now as they go into week one. They're preseason complete after last night. They will face San Francisco and Brock Purdy in week one. We'll get into also, Chad, how good are the Cleveland Browns really? Because if you start to go through Cincinnati, who may or may not have Joe Burrow back with the calf injury, and you look around the division and Cleveland, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, after what we've seen this preseason, it is going to be a interesting merry-go-round of wins and losses, I think. And the schedule stacks up heavy for all four early in the year. We've got, let's get weird with Davey Hudson straight ahead, but weird to see Kevin Hart, not on social and doing something, but in a wheelchair. Which basically he's the same height in a wheelchair that he is in real life, Chad. I'm putting the ball on the tee here for you, but he tore his abdomen. Do you remember when Vince McMahon ran into the ring as part of a bit in WWE and he tore both of his quads at the same time?
Yeah.
And he had to sit with his leg, like he couldn't move, and they're live going, we can't finish what we're doing. Couldn't move. I can imagine tearing your abdomen, and it's during a challenge in a race with NFL running back Stephen Ridley. That's learning the hard way. 2 days ago, tying in here at 6th and Peabody, bachelor party. Clearly drunk. Side street over here. Sprinting and racing challengers and betting beers on who wins the sprint.
Bachelor or bachelorette party?
Bachelor.
Bachelor party.
2 dudes fell, face planted. Like, never a good idea to challenge anyone to a race
on the
at a certain age.
Too.
What's the age cutoff? Outside of pro athlete.
Two things. I think around the time you turn 40, like late 30s, early 40s, okay. My doctors even said this. There comes an age.
He's 44.
Where over 40, you should not jump. That like jumping in the air, every time you do it, you're risking an Achilles tear. I remember hearing about this with Kobe Bryant late in his career when he had all the Achilles problems, that even when you're as in shape as Kobe Bryant, you get into your mid to late 30s, jumping can be problematic for you. Sprinting is certainly problematic. I don't know if you remember this, but during COVID, so I would have been 38 at this point, I was racing my daughter, who at the time was 5 or 6.
I do remember this.
And I gave her a head start in the side of my yard, and trying to catch up to her, just sprinting, I pulled a quad, and then I could not stop myself, and I went flipping into the street and just slid face first into the pavement. Thank God there was no car coming at the time because no one was going anywhere with COVID. And like 3 neighbors were outside and saw it. And I was like limping, and I'm fine. I got inside. I said, I'm definitely not fine.
They didn't help you because you weren't wearing a mask.
I felt like I should be in a wheelchair. Yeah. I didn't actually get in one after that. I limped around for a while, but had strawberries on my arms. It was bad. I actually did kind of a flip in the street to like roll over to not, completely slide. It was bad. Moral of the story is it's not a great idea to sprint when you're of a certain age.
Here's Kevin Hart describing how this all went down with the injury, and Chad will tell you, at least I think he'll cringe at this video on the back end of this after he hears
I know the pain.
Kevin Hart.
Yep. Well, it's going to be bad. Anytime somebody starts off by saying, well, it's bad. Ladies and gentlemen, the age 40 is real. To all my men, women out there that are 40 years old and above, it's not a game. Respect that age. Respect that age. Or that age will make you respect it. I was just forced to respect it. This is just a public service announcement because I know people may see me out. And I don't want you to be alarmed, but I'm in a wheelchair. Yeah. I'm in a wheelchair. Why? Well, because I tried to jump out there and do some young stuff. Tried to go out there and do some young man stuff, and I was told to sit my ass down. Shouts out to Stephen Wiley. I'm going to put this story out there before you do. Me and Stephen, we got into a little debate. This debate was based off of who was faster. Those that know me know I'm pretty fast. Stephen said, Kev, ain't no way you're going to beat me. Stephen is an ex-NFL running back, played for New England Patriots. Very good guy. I said, Steve, you can bet it. He said, bet. I said, bet. We get out there, we go run the 40-yard dash. 40-yard dash. Guys, I blew all my tore my lower abdomen. My abductors are torn. I don't even know what that is, but I tore them. I tore those too. I can't walk. Sit my ass down. This is 44.
He needs to go get in the cold tub like he does for the social videos. Chad is not a fan of Kevin Hart. He's a fan of film, cinema. National Cinema Day is apparently. Is it today or tomorrow?
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. If the film included Kevin Hart, I would vote that Chad would absolutely not go to watch the movie. True or false?
True. I'm trying to think if I've seen anything with Kevin Hart.
I was stunned by that when you told me you didn't like Kevin Hart at all. Like you don't go. You're not it's not even like he's kind of good. You don't laugh at anything with him.
No, I mean he was pretty funny in that when the one thing that made me laugh is when he did the quick look down at the wheelchair. Here it is. There you go.
I mean from the movie stance.
I need to. So I'm looking up his filmography right now, Hutton, because I feel like there's one thing I watched. I was like, oh, he was really enjoyable in that.
It wasn't Jumanji?
I did not see Jumanji. I didn't see that one.
Okay.
I've heard Man from Toronto is good with Woody Harrelson and him, but I've not seen that. Oh, Me Time. I watched that with him and Mark Wahlberg, and it is pretty funny. I mean, I wouldn't
You
say
watched it for Wahlberg.
It's not a laugh riot, of course. Mark Wahlberg superior to Kevin Hart, but he was pretty good in it. I did enjoy that one. Me Time was good. Don't know much else that he's done that's good. And certainly deciding to sprint in a 40-yard dash and injuring yourself that way, also not good. My injury in sprinting was more like one quad that strained. It wasn't complete tears of abdomens and abdominal muscles and
didn't need a wheelchair.
Everything else. Did not need a wheelchair after I limped for a while. Felt like I was in a car wreck when I was done and hit the ground the next day. But other than that, I got through it pretty well.
Chad does not believe that Kevin Hart is good. Also not good as Eli Apple. He will lead us off with Let's Get Weird with Davey Hudson.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Talking now.
All right, guys. Eli Apple having some drama. Obviously not a good sign. Now, I'm not going to air out
without Tyreek Hill.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's just. I mean, this guy's getting roasted by one person after another. But I'm not going to air all his dirty laundry out because it seems like there's more to it. I don't want to get into it. But the main thing, his baby mama, not happy. She took to Instagram pretty much. Not pretty much. She's just saying she wants somebody to harvest his ACL this season.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go for the knees.
Go for the knees. You know, if it's a hammy, whatever. She is not happy. Dastani is how I believe she says her name.
Okay.
But what's even fascinating, I mean, this woman right here, now she's upset because she's saying like Eli is not willing to pay the necessary child support. Again, I don't know all the details there, but what I do know is this woman apparently, this is the third NFL player she's had a kid from. I think Sports Skeeta put it out there that she has a child with Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith. She has a child with Las Vegas Raiders running back Josh Jacobs and now Eli Apple with the Miami Dolphins, which I guess as far as notoriety, he's definitely like, if that's the order in which they went, it's like it continually got worse for her with the NFL players she was with. But what do you think about this? Just your baby mama going out there and just saying, you know what, just take his knees out. That's his future. But it's like if you want money from him.
Yeah, it's self-defeating.
Yeah.
It's a self-defeating proclamation. You should want him healthy and making money, so if you win some court-ordered money, he's making as much as possible. And you can take him for what he's worth with that. And saying you want his ACL harvested, when I saw the headline, I was thinking, for her child? Are they going to implant the dad's uber-athletic ACL
a running back in the league
into the
doesn't have
child?
one?
Like, having an ACL harvested is like when Walt Disney was frozen when he died, to maybe come back alive one day, or Ted Williams, who's frozen. I thought it was for future use, not to like take it out. And go for his hammy. This is a woman who, while being
Tyreek Hill could do that.
While being impregnated by 3 NFL players, clearly not a football fan herself, or doesn't know the game, because you don't really go for someone's hammy.
Well,
your hammy goes on your own when you pull it.
But he could do that by trying to defend Tyreek Hill.
I guess. But either way.
He doesn't do that well.
Yeah. It's just been a rough go at it for NFL cornerbacks this week. This next story, Cowboys, America's team, Trevon Diggs, even though he has done incredibly well whenever it comes to the amount of interceptions he's had. I know there's a lot of talk about he just still gets burned a lot. He's toast. But the story...
And his salary he has now.
Yeah. I will keep this PG, but I do just want to go ahead and put the public service announcement out there that your likes on X, formerly known as Twitter, they're public, people. And so now, Trevon Diggs, his tweets are protected, or his posts are protected, because he ended up getting caught liking what I can only imagine is a dominatrix, posting a picture where she was saying, like if you'd suck it, and you can just imagine how things went from there. Trevon obviously liked the post, and since then we've not seen his tweets come back available to the public.
So there's a very easy explanation of this, an excuse, which while I probably wouldn't buy it, you could always say that you were scrolling through. It wasn't even in your following. It was a for you, which I guess also could lead to some explanation from him. But that you just accidentally, while scrolling, hit the heart and liked it. I mean, right? Couldn't you? Anyone could say that.
But the for you aspect, that's not necessarily always, I don't think it's always for me.
It's advertising.
I know I'm on the for you scroll because I see something that's not for me that I know I wouldn't care it. So I'm like, oh, I need to go to my actual feed.
Well, I'm on my phone now, and I'm like, it'd be very easy for me to hit the heart as I'm scrolling through on something.
Yeah. Well,
so instead of making his tweets, if he really wanted to just get away from it, instead of making his tweets protected, I just would have said, or like retweeted and put, I'm scrolling through, don't even know what that is, and must have hit the heart on it. Made a joke out of it.
Yeah, and
that's the way to handle it.
If you're him too, you could be like, listen, I got a lot of people that handle different social media accounts. I'm going to get to the bottom of whoever it was that accidentally liked this
Roll
post.
over on your own social media team. That's another good way to handle it.
I was hacked.
Speaking of a rough day, our final story comes to us from Perkins, Oklahoma, guys. But, I mean, Chad, you got kids, but this one teacher, police were notified she was not acting normally. She ended up blowing 2 times the legal limit, had wine in her cup while teaching these kids. A lot of people, they're going at the teacher saying, like, why would you show up drunk? Which, I mean, the problem is she drove there, and obviously she had been drinking from the night before, but one could argue the kids led her to it.
That's the problem. I don't know how teachers do it, first off. Like, I'm sure there are teachers that go home and put a few back to just get through the day, especially with little bitty kids when they're teaching them all day. But this takes the cake. When you've got wine in your cup in class, I didn't have a single teacher growing up that I ever suspected of being intoxicated.
No, not intoxicated,
and
no.
I think I might have just said 2 times legal limit. She actually blew, it was 3 times because it was a .24. So.
Wow. You know what, though? Going back to just like, think about being like a very specific, like a heart surgeon, brain surgeon, that you could be called in at any moment. Is there any night where you can like actually just let loose? If you are one of a very handful of specialists that can pull off the operation.
If you remember in the show Lost, there was a whole plot line where the main character, Jack Shepard, played by Matthew Fox, his father was doing surgery and he was drunk. And he got called in after having drinks for dinner or lunch. And he got called back, remember?
Yeah. I mean,
and his son had to pull him off and go in and do the surgery for him because he saw his hand shaking.
Yeah.
He could smell it on him.
If you feel like crap the next day, that's not good either, you know?
That's not what you want when you're under the knife.
No. Not what you want as a teacher either.
Not what I'd want for my third grader either.
Kimberly Coates.
And she'll never teach again.
Yeah. Kim K. Coming up, mugshots and the most famous. How would we approach a mugshot as well, Chad? We'll have to discuss that when we return.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted and how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, Chad, the final hour is here on this Friday edition. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Hope everyone has had a great week. Here's to a great weekend. Give the toast going into the weekend a little bit later in the hour. We've got NFL news, notes, and reaction to headlines. That's coming up a bit later in today's show. Phil Mickelson with admitting to criminal behavior at Augusta National with a funny line on social media. We've got that for you coming up momentarily. Chad, go back to 2013. Whenever I go back in time, I just go back to high school. Do you think of college or high school when you say go back to pre-social media?
Yeah.
That dates us a little bit.
Least. Yeah, for us, not for everyone.
2013, you and I were in year 2 of a radio show together.
Yeah.
Even then, can you imagine?
I was in year 2 of my 30s in 2013.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Even then, just the thought of a former United States president and a mugshot on social media, and soon thereafter, the former president putting it on social media himself with his first post, and since he was allowed back through Musk and X. What a mugshot, by the way. And here's the thing. This was rehearsed. How much... I always look at these mugshots. Some smile, some don't. Everybody knows that these are going to be released. Don't you rehearse these on the way there as you're getting booked?
I saw where Clay tweeted this, but on the screen at CNN, they had at the bottom, sources, Donald Trump planned to look defiant in the mugshot photo. And I'm thinking, well, yeah. Of course he did.
Yeah.
Yes, it's rehearsed, and
absolutely rehearsed.
He went in there and did that.
Now, but I'm saying, like, if I'm thinking that too, because it's not like you're going to see it and be like, I'd like to redo that. You know?
They're giving him like a check. You know, like when you take a pit photo with your buddies to see if it's Instagram worthy or not.
I mean, Giuliani just looked like a gremlin. Like, just, I don't know.
That's just his being.
That's what I'm saying, though. I don't know if that could be rehearsed or not. But
I mean,
knowing that the president, a mugshot is going. I mean, think about the famous photos. You're absolutely giving some thought and effort into that.
Yeah, I mean, like this was the most talked about
the tone.
Mugshot of all time. Even the build up to it of what it would look like with Donald Trump. Of course, he wanted to look angry and
the
mean
tweet
and
said,
defiant,
"Never surrender,"
and all those things. Yeah, he knew what he was doing when he went in there posed for it. You're right, though. The key is you got to walk in with that face. Because you don't know exactly when they're going to flash it. You better have that thing ready to go and not blinking
DMV,
or anything
I have no
else.
idea when they're snapping the photo.
Yeah, you better be looking angry as it's being flashed. It's definitely going to be on T-shirts everywhere. This photo,
already.
This mugshot of Donald Trump. It's amazing. Also, I feel like what would your own mugshot look like?
Yeah.
Just a blank look. I
Just
wouldn't be like thinking about anything. Just
Glossed
staring
over.
at the camera. Yeah, that'd probably be it.
We wouldn't have any of the eye drops necessary. What's the go-to eye drop?
Lumify.
Lumify, yeah.
No, they don't give you Lumify before you take a mugshot photo, typically. And they didn't with Donald Trump either.
Other than Trump here, which former U.S. president would you like to see? Who would have the best mugshot?
Ulysses S. Grant. I feel like a
not a bad
bearded
one.
mugshot would be a good one. Grant also a bit
That's
of a
a good
drunk.
one.
So likely to get a mugshot at some point. So the likelihood that he would be intoxicated while on being pictured, I think, would make it entertaining. I'm going to go Grant.
Nixon.
What about you?
Nixon.
Well, Nixon would have had the mugshot, but Ford pardoned him.
But I'm saying, like,
when he took office.
I'm just looking at the face and the grouch mentality, right?
Oh, yeah.
The great one is.
Here's what's amazing.
Grant is absolutely a good one.
I mean,
Andrew Jackson.
I'm into history. Okay, I'm into history way more than politics. But think about what Richard Nixon did and why he had to resign office. I mean, he went through an apartment of the Democratic National Convention, and he was taping people and all that. Every president now can do all of that. They're looking at everything at all times with the technology that they have. Now think about what
Nixon would feel like Reggie Bush.
What the current president and the former president is accused of doing right now. One accused of trying to persuade people and threaten them into throwing a presidential election his way, and then everything else going on with the current president in office and how small Richard Nixon's crimes appear. Like if I told you that in 1972, 1973, 74, when all this is going down, think of what you would think about that today. And then there would be like half of America who say, "No, this guy definitely committed no crime," and then the other half of America say, "Well, this guy definitely has not committed a crime in his life." And then smart people are just kind of looking around laughing at the whole thing.
Martin Van Buren, ugly.
Van Buren had like the pork chops.
Pork chops that were grown out. That was though.
He would present a good mugshot also. I think anyone before mugshots were a thing. It's funny to speculate what they look at. I'm reading a book right now about Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson in a mugshot would be great. Red hair, taller guy, always very stately and dignified, but in the mugshot setting, probably wouldn't be as much so.
Chad, you sent me one that height and weight too, and comparing the height and weight to NFL players. You've got some good ones here in reaction.
I did not send this.
Official height and weight.
But I do know the one was
215.
Matthew Stafford.
That was it, Matthew Stafford. At
6'2", 215.
Yes. Same for, you've got official height for Lamar Jackson, 6'2", 215.
Do they weigh you in when you go, or do you just tell them what your height and weight is?
No, I think you're standing on you're being measured right there.
But I wonder if they actually weigh you also.
I'm sure. I'm sure they do, because wouldn't you want to? You would weigh them if they're going. I would weigh based on the fact that you want for the average inmate that's going to and from court. I would want to make sure they're not carrying anything else.
So I'm reading the story right now.
Half of these jails, not the prison. The jails don't even have like metal detectors right now that are able to get anything.
This is where it's all different. Last indictment in April, Trump is miraculously 14 pounds lighter and 1 inch taller since his last indictment. He was 229 pounds in April. Now, you could lose 14 pounds in that amount of time, so maybe he did that, but he's also 1 inch taller in this one.
Well,
when you go in for your
he slimmed down.
Yeah, and he looks like he has.
215 though is that's Cameron Maben, and it's identical on height and weight there.
I don't
6'2", 215.
That's a good height and weight. I mean, he's in good shape when I hear that. I don't know that to be true though, because again, I don't know. I don't know they weigh you.
What? No, Stafford is 6'3".
6'3", 232.
Yeah,
is Matthew Stafford. So he's quite a bit bigger than Trump. But you know what I mean? Like I say I'm 6'3" when I go get my driver's license. They're not measuring me. They just take your word for it unless it's way off.
But your previous driver's license would have that.
But I lied on my previous one too. I don't lie, but I'm saying I go up from 6'2.5" to 6'3". I measure. I round up. But they're not taking a tape measure and measuring your height. They're just seeing if it's way off. Hutton, if you went in and said I'm 6'7", they would probably flag that and say, no, you're not. Or if your eye color is different.
You know how certain people, like you've got those that are 5'7", 5'8", that want to be 5'9", you know? You think you go in and say 5'9", that they're, sorry, sir, you're not 5'10". We're going to put 5'8" on here. That's what we think.
Allie in the YouTube chat says JFK's mugshot would be badass. Said Clinton's mugshot also would be good. Those are two good entries. I need someone with expertise in taking a mugshot and getting arrested to tell me if they actually measure and weigh you when you go in.
They definitely measure. You're standing next to how many inches tall you are on your mugshot with your inmate number.
Do they weigh you then, would be my question, or is he just telling them 215?
I don't know. You think sorry, sir, you're 4 bills. You can't claim to be 375.
Well, I mean, look, when I tell someone my weight, it's typically not exactly my weight at the time. It's probably about 5 pounds less than I actually weigh.
You know what? You're going to have to be on the bottom bunk, sir.
But the scale doesn't lie.
Too much.
Scale doesn't lie.
Yeah, the mugshot T-shirt's already making the rounds. Clay asked if it was the most famous photo of all time. Not mugshot, just photo.
What would be the most famous photo of all time?
I mean, the one I see the most historically is it's something Civil War related, is what I've seen. It would be Lincoln, like the Lincoln funeral procession with the kids in the window.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Iwo Jima, the flag.
That one, yeah.
the Marines raising the flag.
9/11 with the flag.
Muhammad Ali standing over Sonny Liston.
Yeah.
With the fist pump.
9/11 with the flag and the
another
rubble.
famous one.
That's one.
I think about like the Beatles Abbey Road album cover where they're walking across the road as a famous photo.
People recreate that one.
I don't think like.
See, this is
I know
going to
what
be.
Clay does with this, but I can't say that right now. Like
Yeah.
it just happened.
Well, he was just
so to
asking
say,
the question.
is this the most famous photo of all time? Well, it's hours old.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Ask me in 20 years, and then we'll look back and see if it's the most famous of all
I
time.
do like that he asked the question that way, though, because in sports, I want to know
Well, the
if
way
I'm
to
watching.
phrase it is, will it be the most famous photo of all time? I can't answer right now, is it the most famous photo of all time?
Yeah.
I see
Proximity bias.
Earthrise from Apollo 8, where they're on the moon
Yes.
shooting back at the Earth. I think that is technically, if you look at factors that go into, just how much has been around, like from a worldwide standpoint, that's the
That's a good one.
most famous picture.
That's a good one.
Was it William Anders? I'll give the photographer credit.
The kids in the window at the Lincoln funeral procession, I believe Teddy Roosevelt was in the window as a child watching this. I think that's the historical significance of that one photo.
Yes.
But yeah, man, I mean, I see the mugshot, and I think this is a Halloween costume. This mask with the navy jacket, red tie, and a very crisp white shirt. So this is Chad, you know how we had years ago here in Nashville on Broadway, maybe they're still out there, but you had the two guys that would dress up like
Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were out on Broadway.
We'll see. They'll be back.
David on the YouTube chat says the Navy soldier, the Navy guy kissing the nurse at the end of World War II.
Yeah, that's
another famous one, Times Square. I think it's where that took place.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's great. Yeah, I like thinking about the historical photo. And then, there was really one guy that took all of the Civil War photos that went around. Yeah, isn't that crazy, though? Like, they commissioned one person that was just known for documenting that.
By the way, no one in our YouTube chat is buying 215. Everyone's saying, bro is at least 50 pounds heavier than 215.
Could be on Ozempic.
Could be.
The tank man from Tiananmen Square.
Yes.
Another one. And the final one I'll put forth is the Burning Monk.
Yeah, that's
that
one I thought about. Yeah. The guy lighting himself on fire. All good entries.
Chad, hopefully we haven't had to do this. Hopefully we never do. The mugshot.
There before the grace of God.
Yeah. Let's put it that we will not have we're not going to have a motorcade and be able to think about this on our way in.
I can honestly say that I'll never be indicted for trying to swing an election one way or the other. There's other things that I might get indicted for, but I will not be running for any public office, and I will not be trying to swing an election, or whether it's true or not, I will not be accused of that because I'll be nowhere near a phone calling people to count votes again. You need to count that again. Count those again.
Yeah, go
Unless
back to
I'm
that.
in like some sort of, I'm really big into food. If I got into a cooking contest and I wanted the votes counted again, maybe I could get charged or indicted for that. But I will be swinging no elections anytime soon.
By the way, how about the move? Everyone's been trying to see the mugshot for the previous indictments, right? And as soon as the media gets this, and anyone that's against Trump, for Trump, those that are trying to just crucify him, he tweets it on his own, on X for the first post. Never surrender with
Smart.
this look. So he just owns it.
It almost seems like he had an arrangement. Like a lot of times celebrities, like for the first photo of their child or them together as a couple, they'll make a deal with a
Us
certain
magazine.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
Us
the wedding
Magazine,
photos?
but they'll make a deal with like a photog or someone to come and get like a candid shot, and they'll get paid for it.
Yeah.
I feel like Trump and Elon struck some sort of deal that said, I get your first mugshot photo, you get back on X.
Put it back on your
post
account.
it, and then we'll blow the thing up when
Chad,
we do that. It's
we
a good
like
business
we like
decision.
to announce we're back, right? This is the most alpha way to do so. I'm back on social. I'm back on my account.
With the mugshot?
Been reinstated, and this is my first post since.
Hud, when you get arrested this weekend, so we can announce we're back with a mugshot.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. No one here wants to get arrested. I can promise you that.
Would you bail me out?
Yeah. I mean,
Regardless of
if I have the money on me, yeah. If I was your call, I would absolutely bail you out.
Is it true you only get one call?
I think you get like one person to answer. I think if you call and they don't answer in the middle of the night, like they let you call until someone picks up.
I think everyone's screwed if it's one call because
I don't think
I'm not
it's like,
answering a random number that I don't know.
My phone's also turned off. When I go to bed, like it's off. I've got a monitor on my children that I can hear.
But I have you
but
on
outside of that, my phone is turned off.
Well, you don't have this feature. I've got the favorites list, and you're on my favorites. So even if my phone is on silent, you're going to ring.
You're on my favorites on Instagram.
Thank you.
Like whenever I want to send a message or something funny
you didn't
to someone,
randomly like my photo
pop
there.
up
You really liked
immediately. Yeah, you're one of my favorites.
If you're in a smaller town, you got a lot more opportunities to have multiple calls. Is from not me personally having to deal with this, but just typically
Your friends have called you.
Yeah, you know somebody that's probably working at the jail. They'll help you out a little bit more.
Okay.
But a lot of times, they won't let you have your phone, so it just depends on like what numbers you remember, which is a big problem now. It wasn't like 15 years ago because caller ID is what it is. Yeah.
I probably only know like 2 numbers right now. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know many.
Is 411 still a thing?
I don't know.
I don't either.
We
ask the questions.
Chad,
you give us the answers.
I would absolutely. If I don't have your number, I wouldn't be able to call you. I would need my phone to be able to get your number.
I know maybe 1 or 2 numbers off the top of my head. Maybe.
How many signs has Phil Mickelson stolen from Augusta? We've got that coming up.
Don't get arrested as we go into the weekend. That's our message to you. You're welcome.
GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy thinks that all voters should be able to pass a civics test, so I'm here on Broadway to see how we're doing. Can you name 3 cabinet positions?
Secretary of State.
Yep.
Secretary of Labor.
Yep.
And we'll go the Secretary of Education.
Correct. What is the capital of Tennessee?
That one, I have no idea. Tallahassee. No, that's Florida. That's Florida. Yeah. No. Do you know the capital of Tennessee? What the hell? These people don't even like me.
All right, I'll give you a hint. You're standing in it. How many U.S. senators are there?
Way too many.
Well, they're way too old, I'll tell you that.
Not enough to do the job right, that's for sure.
If something bad happens to the president, who takes over?
The vice president.
Who is our vice president right now?
What does it start with? What's the first letter start with?
K.
Not sure. I don't know.
Okay. When was the Constitution written?
1976.
1787. How many amendments does the Constitution have?
32.
27. How many U.S. senators are there?
Damn. More than 50.
That's true, yes.
Because there's 50 states. There you go.
And how many senators are from each state?
2.
So how many is that?
100.
There you go. It's just basic math. You got it.
I have to really think.
What ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
East Coast.
Atlantic, then.
There you go. If something bad happens to the president and the vice president, who takes over?
First one up from Congress?
And who is that?
Some old man.
Do you know what ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
Atlantic, sorry. Wait. Atlantic. What is the capital of Tennessee? Nashville. It's Nashville, guys. How many years do we elect a senator for?
4.
6. What about a congressman?
That's 4.
2.
It's just a trick question, so.
Before he was president, Eisenhower was a general in what war?
World War II. He commanded Operation Overlord and D-Day invasion.
Correct. Okay. When was the Constitution written? Before that.
1854.
Before that.
1818.
Before that?
1777.
After that?
1789.
Before that?
1784.
After that?
1785.
After that?
1786.
After that?
1777.
After that? You were so close.
1778.
No.
Kanye West, Kanye 2024, big time. I wrote him in West Virginia, put him on the ballot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? So proudly we hail, so.
Glad you're with us. Happy Friday to you. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on OutKick. You can find us on YouTube through the OutKick channel. Hope you'll subscribe while you're there. All the shows there on demand and live. You can catch us 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Same goes for all of the shows and podcast clips and more. And thank you for listening to this great radio station that is part of the partnership here on the OutKick Network.
Allie in the YouTube chat, other famous mugshots that are still everywhere, Elvis, Johnny Cash, and James Dean. The Johnny Cash one I see all the time.
Yes.
Those are all good
That
entries.
one's legit. And that one is T-shirt worthy.
Yes. Allie also said the builders sitting on the beam on the skyscraper in New York City when the skyline's being built.
Yes.
Terrific. Great entries.
That's fantastic.
Good job, everybody.
Keep those coming.
Good job, everyone. Hey, good work, everybody. Let's call it a week. Good job. All right. Have a great weekend.
Worst celebrity
mug
mugshots are always, see, that they're so inebriated. It's awful, you know?
Yeah. Someone else said, I'm trying to credit the right person in the chat. Jordan says, the only time you don't rehearse your mugshot is when you're super drunk.
Yeah.
So every mugshot's rehearsed to some extent if you're not drunk. If you're showing up to turn yourself in, you've thought about what you're going to do in your mugshot, right?
Yeah. It's always not
premeditation. Premeditation and how you're
I would
photographed.
absolutely rehearse it, like if I'm thinking, and I have to go in. Yeah. And then are you practicing different looks for people?
Well, middle finger would have been incredible.
Yeah. Chad, Phil Mickelson, I love following him on social. And he'll do random videos like this where he's giving an old story. He had just won the Masters, a little backstory because we're going to pick up midway through. He ties in a gambling reference and stealing some signs from Augusta National. But he's on the practice green, just doing some chipping, light chipping. And this is the year after that he won the Masters. And he's doing exactly what he did the year prior whenever he won. He's trying to, stay within, making sure that he doesn't screw up the mojo a bit. But what he's doing is stealing a sign from the top course in terms of pristine, everything's taken care of. All of the greenskeepers, they're all over the place at any time, any day and night. And Mickelson is explaining how after the Champions Dinner, he's crawling around to try to steal the same sign every year.
So I get there in 2005 and I show up and I'm going to go do my towel drill out on the East Range, and there's a sign there that says East Practice Range is for short game only. So I can no longer hit those shots like I was doing. So after the Champions Dinner, I let all the champions leave first, and I go down Magnolia Lane and I park the car and I kind of crawl under the magnolias, and I take that sign and I wiggle and I wiggle and I lift and I yank it out and I throw it into the back of my SUV. Off I go. So I show up the next morning, there's no sign there. I start hitting my shots, I do my towel drill, and do it all week long. And so we go back and another year goes and we're 2006, and I show up and I'm going to go do my towel drill again, and there's a sign there. East Practice Range is for short game only. And so I wait till everybody leaves after the Champions Dinner, and I park my car over Magnolia Lane and I crawl into the magnolias and I wiggle and get this sign out and I throw it in the back of my truck and off I go. And so I show up the next day and I'm going to go do my towel drill, and there's another sign there. So it never dawned on me there are cameras everywhere, and there's some video of me crawling under these magnolias with the guy saying, look at this idiot, like, what's he doing? Now, a lot of you might bet that that's not a true story. Now, I'm not a betting man, so I'm not going to take it, but I wouldn't do that because it's a true story.
There's Mickelson. It's a true story. He's holding up one of the signs that he had taken from Augusta National.
I'm not a betting man.
I'm not
It's
a betting
too
man
funny.
is a great line at the end of that,
Too
too.
ironic. That's perfect. I love how he said, I wiggle, and I yank. It made me think of I huff, I puff, and I blow your house down. Great storyteller, that Phil Mickelson. I was enthralled the entire time. Had me on the edge of my seat.
Mickelson, to me, I haven't even – you always get the random question, like, who would you like to have dinner with? Like, what's an athlete you like to – he would be a blast.
He'd be awesome also because you wouldn't have to contribute much to the conversation at dinner or over drinks. You just kind of wind him up and let him go.
Yes.
But he's also not the type that I feel like would just take the air out of the room. There are people that talk too much to the point where you're ready for someone else to speak. He's not one of those guys. You want him to keep talking.
And I think it's all, like, he's not – this isn't a podcast. He's just his account, and he's bringing around a prop to show – exactly, until, you're not going to believe me, but here you go. Chad.
He also seems like a guy who's kind of always on when he's in public.
Yeah.
He's always had that reputation for people, right? He seems like that type of dude.
Chad,
it's okay,
Phil
guys.
Mickelson,
I just hit the mic.
Phil Mickelson may be saying that he's not a
I got
betting
very
man,
scared for a second.
tongue-in-cheek, but we are. We are, absolutely. And we've got a four-pack of games. We're not going to bet every game in college football tomorrow.
Can I
But
throw
we
in
do
a
have a
disclaimer?
Yeah, absolutely. Go
Before
ahead.
we get into this, these Chutton picks for week one.
Yeah.
Much like the college football season, the biggest improvement you see, Hutton, is from when? Week 1 to week 2. That's the biggest jump you're going to make as a team. Week 1, especially week 0, which we're talking about right now. A lot of unknowns, a lot of variables. So while we feel good about these picks, we are making these picks a little bit blind and going with our gut on them. And we want the viewer or listener or however you consume the show to know that much like the college football teams we're going to watch this year, our biggest improvement, our biggest jump will take place from this week to next week.
How do you improve if you go 4-0?
Well, if we go 4-0, then it's only going downhill from there. But I just want to put that out there. Hutton, what I'm doing right now is I'm lowering the expectation, hedging our bet. So if these are bad, we can come back next week and say we're going to win all of them now.
Okay. I feel confident in these, though. And it's not even about, like, what you're saying, a transfer portal, different things change. It's just kind of the setup here. And let's start with the Irish. How can we not here? Irish, Notre Dame and Navy in Dublin with the debut of Sam Hartman in Ireland. Let's go Irish. I'm laying the points here, and I know you are confident in this as well in just giving the 20.5.
No more Ken Niumatalolo. The offense is changing for Navy. I really want to pick Navy because I always want to pick Navy, especially in these games. Always seemingly tough for big opponents. Notre Dame, no different over the years. They've had some very tough matchups with Navy. But Hutton, I think the offensive change, new coach, the Irish in Ireland, that part of it, I think we're going to be sweating this one out. But I like it. I think Notre Dame wins by 3 touchdowns.
I don't think we are. I really don't.
They may just house them.
This doesn't feel like Notre Dame Marshall to me from a year ago.
I think new coach, new scheme, it's going to help Notre Dame.
And quarterback.
Yes. Sam Hartman, his debut. Will Sam Hartman be the talk of Heisman voters and Heisman hype after week 1? Because this will be the marquee game. This is the game that everyone who's watching football on Saturday, you're going to tune in for this game on NBC over in Ireland. Jason Garrett is going to be on the call for NBC on color commentary. Yeah, so people are going to watch this one. If Sam Hartman has a huge game, suddenly he's the talk on Monday.
Let's move to the perception versus reality here. Ohio is a team that could win the MAC. San Diego State has had to replace some key pieces on both sides of the ball. The game is home for San Diego State. They are favored by 2.5 against the traveling Bobcats of Ohio. But one team tried to flex and join a Power 5. They were turned down. They went back, and the conference that was refusing to pay them then agreed to pay them. And then the conference that they tried to join is trying to pay them as well to join the conference that is going under. They're viewed as a savior. Give me San Diego State minus 2.5 against Ohio here. The Aztec defense, they're solid. Even with some new players, the system works. And while Ohio can sling it around a bit and they have edge rushers that can get after the quarterback, Aztecs are winning this, Chad. This is just a feeling. This is even the players are saying, yeah, we're going to be in the Pac-12. We're going to be in the Pac-12. And now the Pac-12 would love to be in the Mountain West. This is the team that's been talking about it. Give me San Diego State.
Not only one of these teams is coached by Brady Hoke. And Brady Hoke, at one point, texted in all caps his desire to be the next coach at Tennessee. And no punctuation, all caps. This guy is all gas, no brakes. For that very reason, San Diego State covers this easily.
Doesn't like the state of Ohio.
You know one that I don't think we're going to be sweating out?
Go ahead.
Is this game. I think we sweat out Notre Dame
I
covering.
agree.
I don't think we're sweating this one out in the fourth quarter.
Is this Brando's game on FS1?
Yes.
Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman will be on the call for this game.
Yep.
On FS1. I can't wait to check in on this. Timmy B hopefully joins us next week. Chad, next up on our...
Timmy B always good on the call.
Oh, yeah. And
classic. He's a classic.
And a loyalist to all things classic college football.
Yes.
The throwback broadcast for sure with Timmy B and Spencer Tillman. Next up, Chad, how do you feel from San Diego State looking at some of the picks that we have? We're headed right down the road here. Vanderbilt against Hawaii. The Commodores took care of business a year ago on the road against the Rainbows.
Let me tell you exactly what's going to happen in this game.
Okay.
The Doors are going to emerge from the rubble that is their stadium. This stadium that now the capacity has fallen below that of MTSU. That's down to 27,000 for this game. They are sick and tired of hearing from people like me about how they're playing in a construction zone. They're pissed off about it. Coaches are tweeting about it. Players are ready to go. Clark Lee in year 2 took a huge step up from year 1, going 5-7. They figured some things out on offense with A.J. Swan. Junior Sherrill, guy we called a state championship game at Lipscomb Academy, Hutton. He is a player to watch as a freshman for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, much improved this year. Their defense was atrocious a year ago, and that was the biggest problem. I think they improve a little bit. Still going to be pretty bad on defense, but they'll improve a bit. Give me the Doors. Covering the points at home against Hawaii. Hutton, I think this is another one that we're not sweating out. I think Vandy rolls Hawaii at home Saturday night.
Yeah, and they've got, they have some question marks. This is not going to be something that is contested in the second half. They don't have their top player. 2 years in a row, by the way, they've lost their top player to the portal. One that tackled Alabama and now a running back.
Yeah, Ray Davis went to Kentucky and also had some comment that, man, I'm up in Lexington now. It's great to know what a football town is like. And I'm thinking, do you know the history of Kentucky basketball? This is not a football town. This is a basketball town first and foremost. So absolutely not a football town.
Davey's already sending his text to us saying he's parlaying all of our picks on DraftKings.
Nice.
So thank you, Dave. We're going to follow you on this as well. Chad and I are betting this as a parlay as well. And
I've already done it.
The final game is a first half bet, Chad.
Yeah, I think talked about Caleb Williams earlier and what he's got to do to come out of the gate strong. And really throughout the season, he's got to pass what he did a year ago, which was spectacular. To win the Heisman, to have a chance to win a second one, I think he gets started quick against San Jose State. I think they're a 31-point favorite.
They are.
But they're going to jump out to a fast start. I didn't like the full game points in this one, Hutton. We discussed these picks before the show. Don't love those. I like USC to jump out and cover the halftime spread.
It's 16.5
in this game.
In the first half.
I get a little nervous when the points get that high because I hate the feeling of getting backdoored
with a field goal at the end for no reason.
Or, just backup defense is in, they run the ball, they score a touchdown late, onside kick, and then score again to make it 28 when it was 35 or whatever that may be. I hate those losses, gambling. I think USC gets way ahead by halftime, so I like that halftime line.
So just recapping, Notre Dame, we're laying the points here on every game. Notre Dame minus 20.5, San Diego State minus 2.5, Vandy minus 70.5 against Hawaii, and the first half line taking SC minus 16.5 over the first two quarters. Other games, Chad, throughout the weekend, UTEP, Jacksonville State, and the Florida International Louisiana Tech game. That's Carter Blackburn and Randy Cross. You get some of the second, third, fourth broadcast crews that are getting some of these games that are week 0 matchups that I'm likely not going to see many of these teams again this season. And I'll be flipping around looking for a reason to watch college football. Meanwhile, the game on ESPN is it Mercer, North Alabama? That's one of them. And they also have on ABC, South Carolina State, Jackson State in Atlanta.
Yeah, UMass, New Mexico State is another one on ESPN, 6 o'clock on Saturday night. Either way, we got football this weekend.
Shout out Timmy B.
Timmy B is going to crush it. I have no doubts.
Always does. We crush it. Coming up, going into the weekend, we'll give a toast and some other headlines, including some quarterbacks who are not playing, some who are in the final game of the preseason. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted
he
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Glad you're with us. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Happy Friday to you.
Fun week, Hutton.
Football
Fun week
this
on the show.
weekend, preseason tonight. Wrapping up. That's good news for everybody, right? Getting ready for the regular season.
Then you get that 1 week where college football is the sole spotlight.
Well, and for good reason, based on some games.
Yeah, Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even Labor Day games.
Yeah.
And then after that, you got they're not going to have another weekend for a long time where there's not college football and NFL on the same weekend.
Christmas is here.
It is.
Christmas is here. You mentioned next weekend, one of the marquee matchups, LSU and Florida State.
It's a crazy story.
Ross Dellinger. Yeah, and it tells you the respect that certain programs have for the NCAA and many conferences for that matter, what they don't have, more importantly, even though they're suspending players. So LSU, this is from Ross Dellinger. LSU exhausted all options in defensive tackle Mason Smith's case, including playing on week 0. This is Brian Kelly directly to Yahoo Sports. Smith's suspension against Florida State is due to a 2021 autograph signing. And it took place 1 month. It took place in June of 2021. The NCAA threw in the towel of a boxing match against the Supreme Court, threw in the towel, and stepped away and said, hey, everyone, police this however you want, regulate this however you want, case by case, program by program, conference by conference, do whatever you want to do. We're not involved anymore. That was in July of 2021. They handed out a 1-game suspension to Mason Smith, very talented defensive tackle, and LSU wanted to have that 1 game be the first game of the season prior to week 1. They do play Grambling on SEC Network, probably SEC Network Plus is more like it. And they tried to move a game to week 0 to have that be the game that he was suspended for from the NCAA instead of the Florida State matchup. If that's not trying to just say, hey,
screw you,
whatever you want to do, try to stop us from doing this. And here's my theory, Chad, so this is on SEC Network Plus. We went through
the Grambling LSU game in week 2.
True.
Is there.
Correct. In week 0, there's 1 FBS game on ESPN. Do you think ESPN would air LSU Grambling State week 0? I do.
Yeah. I mean, if they have the option to do that,
I'm saying
absolutely.
On the 4-letter network.
Yeah.
And that would be...
But if not, they would have put it on SEC Network earlier in the day. They have Vandy Hawaii at night. They would have put it on one of their ESPN properties.
I guess what I'm saying is if I'm Grambling, I'm like, yeah, I would love to be on ESPN.
I wish they could have put this together because it's just the ultimate screw you to the NCAA. So I'm sad they couldn't do it. I like that LSU attempted it. LSU is the chief proponent of not respecting the NCAA in the least.
Let me jump in, though.
Going back to Will Wade.
Oh, I agree there.
And how they handled that, even the Les Miles stuff and Ed Ogeron, they do not give a you-know-what about the NCAA. And this is another example.
But this is a direct quote from the head coach of LSU, Brian Kelly, that's saying that they exhausted all options. We looked at all the options out there, certainly. We wanted to make sure that we examined everything that was possible. We looked at everything. Week 0 to bring another opponent in, everything, but time ran out, is the quote. Like saying, we tried to circumvent and make sure that we were going to have him for Florida State, and we just couldn't.
I would have loved that. That's
more than just not doing, that's more than just saying, hey, we're moving up to week 0. You've got the head coach saying, screw you guys. This happened 1 month before you said, screw it, we're out. And you're suspending him for a game.
It's the college football equivalent, Hutton, of when the manager goes to the bullpen to get the righty-righty matchup. And then as the guy comes out of the bullpen, the other manager brings in the lefty off the bench to go against him and then hits the home run. This is the equivalent of that with trying to swap Grambling to the first game. I wish they could have pulled it off.
This is an example of DBAP as well. The NCAA, they had a spokesperson that gave comment in response to Reggie Bush's defamation lawsuit 2 days ago. They declined comment on this story. Think about that.
It's dumb.
No comment.
Also, we're
not going to release a comment.
Why are we spending time on this? I just look at it as a total waste of time. A month before this would have been legal. Who cares? No one cares. Why do you care?
I know.
Like, let's actually remember, like 5 or 6 years ago, they said we're going to go after the real cheaters. We're going to find the teams that really cheat, and we're going to hammer those coaches and do that. Okay, fine. We'll go do that. Who on earth right now cares?
But you may
that
have
a kid
answered
made money off his name, image, likeness.
You may have answered
a month early.
The NCAA cares because it's LSU, not because it's the kid. Just like the Michigan suspending self-imposed a 3-game suspension for Harbaugh, because retroactively the NCAA, they care because it was LSU that defied them with Will Wade stuff. Again, I'm trying to go beneath the surface to figure out why this is such a big deal to the NCAA.
It's all so stupid.
Do you think this would happen to Tennessee now after they cooperated?
No. I mean, here's what Tennessee was to them: an ATM machine. I mean, they said, hey, thanks for cooperating with us. We're not going to give you that bowl ban that you so desired not to get. And you did fire all of your coaches with cause. So now give us the biggest fine ever. This is our last chance to make a ton of money.
Yeah.
We're on our way out. So go ahead and just fork over all that money you've been making and all those bowl games you've been going to these last couple of years. That's what they did to Tennessee.
Chad, it appears.
But with LSU, it's, Mason Smith deserves 1 game. Because what he did is so wrong.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah. Well, and there's no rule in the bylaws that Kelly was saying like that would prevent them from doing this illegally.
Who does that serve? I look at it as if you're trying to weed out cheaters, because you're saying if someone's breaking the rules, who it's affecting is the opponents of that team, whether it be in recruiting, head-to-head, whatever. So, yeah, okay, let's punish the cheaters when it comes to that. No one cheated here. Who does this serve? Who cares?
And he was with Keyshawn Boutte then. Of course, they can't do anything about him because he's
gone.
He's on a roster. Yeah. But he was suspended for a game. He was suspended for the New Mexico game, not the Florida State game. He was suspended in 2022. There you go. No. He did serve the 1-game suspension. And by the way, he served the 1-game suspension the week that his son was born, Keyshawn Boutte. So
it's so funny. It feels like it's all made up. And I think with the NCAA, what they do now is just make things up.
Would they do this for a walk-on guy or a second-string guy?
Well, first off, the walk-on guy wouldn't get money from autographs, but also no.
Well, I'm just saying,
they wouldn't
publicly combat the NCAA over something.
Oh, no. Would LSU? No, not at all.
No.
But again, it's chicken and egg.
Yeah,
no walk-on's getting money for his own, autograph.
Chad, among the starters who normally don't play in the preseason, Ryan Tannehill, quarterback for the Titans. He's apparently going to have a few snaps in the final preseason game. Rare to see him there. There are plenty of quarterbacks, though, that have either taken snaps or will for the star power of the league. Rodgers is going to. It appears as though Mahomes is going to. Other starters as well, and Tannehill will do that too against the Patriots.
what was it Mike Tomlin said? You got to spar before you can box. So this is Ryan Tannehill for, 1 or 2 series deciding to spar a little bit. And Mike Vrabel saying he needs to spar. Look.
Will Levis will not play.
And
for
that's,
the second consecutive
to me, that's
game.
the bummer for the Titans because you trade up to get a guy in the second round. He should be the backup quarterback. That's the battle to watch. Ryan Tannehill's the starter in Tennessee. The battle is Will Levis versus Malik Willis. And everyone who's wanted to see that battle play out, if you're a Titans fan, you've been robbed of that because of the injury to Will Levis where they've set him out the last 2 games.
Jackson Smith and Jigba had an extensive surgery. That, according to head coach Pete Carroll in Seattle. He had a fractured wrist. It was described as a small fracture, and Carroll didn't really know other than everything was great going into what was going to be a surgery, and they thought it would be a short-term deal. He could miss now up to a month as the 3rd wide receiver out in Seattle, but they were going to feed him the ball a lot. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith coming off the year he did, Kenneth Walker III still in the backfield. When he comes back, I wonder how much that affects his production. Hopefully not. I'm extremely high on him. I love his attitude, his work ethic, and the fact that you have him, the number 1 option at Ohio State a year ago, the 3rd option for Geno Smith's offense in Seattle.
Number 1 options at Ohio State have fared pretty well in recent history.
Not bad.
Garrett Wilson, check. Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year with the Jets. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Hutton, you're buying him. We had the whole feature earlier this week that you're buying him. Gets injured. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Marvin Harrison Jr. will be the next number 1 option from Ohio State that's going to do pretty well once he gets the NFL. So those Ohio State receivers. And they've got another recruiting class coming in this year that's one of the best receiver classes in the history of college football. So Ryan Day in that offense doing very well. Brian Hartline, the receivers coach, I know heralded as one of the best recruiters in all of college football. They're getting studs at wide receiver at Ohio State, and I think Jackson Smith and Jigba another example.
Jonathan Taylor could be traded. The deadline's coming up on Tuesday. Denver is in the mix, according to Tom Pelissero, E. Rappaport, Schefter, and others. There's some star power there, and they need Jerry Jeudy in their passing game is down, and he's going to miss significant time, several games, several weeks, I should say, with a hamstring injury that had him carted off earlier this week. They have been hamstrung at the injuries, with injuries at the wide receiver position. Cortland Sutton with an ACL 2 years ago. Jeudy had a high ankle sprain that kept him out for a while. Hamler, Tim Patrick, and I believe Patrick's injured again. Yeah, he tore his ACL or Achilles earlier this preseason. The list goes on and on. So there's that's the second big injury to that wide receiver room. Meanwhile, Chad, your thoughts on this? I was reading this last night. So Anthony Richardson, here's what I hope from the NFL preseason tonight. That we call a performance that was 6 of 17 passing mediocre and needing work, not making excuses for a guy. Good feeling pressure for Anthony Richardson last night. Some misfires, and the fumble was bad, but overall I'd say very positive. Dude went 6 of 17 passing.
Who tweeted that?
That was Ben Arthur who tweeted this. But there's rave reviews for him. He had 5 carries for 38 yards. He completed 6 passes for 78 yards. 6 of 17, and somehow that is overall very positive. I don't understand it one bit.
Malik
Willis was allowed to attempt 16 passes a year ago for a guy who was awful at skipping rocks, let alone completing passes.
We had Dan Dakich on earlier today, Hutton, and he called it for what it is. The indie media can be soft at times. That covers that team. And he'll go a lot harder, and he knows a lot more about it than we do. But if you want to have Exhibit A of softness and catering and pandering to a professional team in your town, I would put that tweet in the Louvre of softness from media. 6 of 17, not a good performance. So call it the way it is. Stop sugarcoating it. Stop trying to serve a fan base or a team. Just call it how you see it. And that's not how anyone saw it.
It may be preseason for the NFL that wraps up, but this weekend, college football kicks off. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
A toast to football season.
Cheers to another great week also. Terrific job by the crew here in studio and outside the studio. Hutton, what do we say every week we come in here? We want to get everyone through the week as fast as possible, right? This week, I am here to report, flew by. Absolutely flew by faster than most weeks we've had on the show.
We're going 4-0 with our picks. Enjoy college football if you can. A toast to the preseason ending and on to NFL Week 1. Have a great weekend. We are back at it Monday at 3 o'clock Eastern. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network.
No mugshots this weekend, everyone.